Inside the Adventurers Guild, the warrior Aisha Garden leans over the counter, her expression fraught with urgency. She repeatedly questions the receptionist, Elise, about a man in a black robe, demanding to know if he is present. Elise, maintaining a gentle smile, calmly insists that no such mage is registered with their guild and suggests Aisha must be mistaken. Unbeknownst to the beautiful knight, the very hero she seeks is just a few feet away. The commotion draws the attention of other adventurers seated nearby. Aisha's desperation escalates as she grabs the terrified receptionist, demanding to know if Elise thinks she has gone crazy. Elise cries out, pleading for forgiveness. Her companion, Saran, steps forward to intervene, apologizing for Aisha's intensity. The adventurers at a nearby table recognize the two women as members of the famed party Chalkblade and observe that they look disheveled. One of them remarks that it sounds like they encountered a powerful monster that gave them a difficult time. The gossip continues as they recount the circulating rumor. A mysterious mage simply appeared, defeated the monster for his own amusement, and then vanished before anyone could learn his identity. As the story sinks in, one of the adventurers, Rudy, expresses his shock. He realizes the incredible implication. If the tale is true, this unknown mage single-handedly saved the lives of Chalkblade. His friend scoffs, finding the story too fantastic to be believed. Rudy's mind conjures a vivid fantasy of the kind of reward such a hero might receive, imagining the warriors offering a very personal kind of thanks. The thought makes him and his companion flush with jealousy, while Turi, sitting with them, chokes on his drink. His sudden outburst doesn't go unnoticed. Rudy turns to him, accusingly asking if he just laughed at them. Turi, struggling to suppress a smile, quickly denies it, stammering that he wouldn't dare. After all, he knows the truth. He revels in the irony. He is Higashiyama Turi, the very mysterious mage at the center of all the gossip. A profound sense of satisfaction washes over him. He is overjoyed to have been reincarnated into this world, finding it perfect that he can be the subject of such speculation while remaining completely anonymous. His thoughts drift to his past life, to a memory of himself as a young boy. For as long as he could remember, he had secretly wished to be a protagonist who acts ordinary in public, a quiet hero. He recalls his 25 years on Earth, living an honest and safe life, but one where he always lacked the confidence to act. The memory culminates in his final moments. Seeing a child chase a ball into the street, he screamed a warning and lunged forward without a second thought. He recalled the final moment with stark clarity. As expected, his act of pushing the child out of the way of the speeding truck had resulted in his own death. The violent impact gave way to a disorienting white space. A cheerful young woman appeared before him, flashing a peace sign and welcoming him to the afterlife. She introduced herself as something akin to a god, leaving him utterly stunned and confused. She apologized for his confusion and decided to get straight to the point. As he sat on the floor of the endless void, she stated the fact plainly. Higashiyama Turi had died while saving a child. His mind struggled to process the information, but his first concern was not for himself. He immediately asked what had happened to the kid. The goddess acknowledged that he must be feeling depressed, but urged him to listen to what she had to say. He pressed on frantically, his voice filled with urgency as he demanded to know if the child was safe and sound. The goddess confirmed it simply, stating that the boy hadn't even gotten a scratch. An immense wave of relief washed over him. He clasped his hands and gave thanks, musing that he could have been a cool, nameless hero, though he admitted he would have preferred to survive. The goddess remarked that he seemed to have gone off the deep end, but he retorted that being a secret hero is every man's dream. She smiled, clarifying that she wasn't making fun of him, and, in fact, thought very highly of his actions. Her expression then grew serious. She revealed a startling truth. According to the records of fate, the child he saved was destined to die that day. His intervention was never supposed to have happened. And yet, she continued, pointing a finger at him with a knowing smile. He had managed to change that fate and save the boy. She declared his accomplishment to be truly amazing. Because he possessed the power to change fate, she announced that she had a reward for him. She would fulfill his cute little wish. Still wary, he asked how long she planned to tease him, wondering what fulfilling his dream could possibly mean now. She chuckled softly, bringing a finger to her lips. This, she explained, was what she actually wanted to discuss. With a sly wink, she posed the ultimate question. Would he be interested in reincarnating in another world? With the goddess's offer accepted, Turi opened his eyes to his sun-dappled forest clearing. The reality of his situation settled in with a jolt of excitement. He had truly been reincarnated into another world. He stood up to take stock of his new circumstances, admiring the practical, yet stylish clothes he now wore. The goddess had provided several parting gifts: swords, textbooks, a healing potion, and a robe for sleeping outdoors. Most importantly, he discovered he had been granted the basic knowledge necessary for survival, including geography, history, and the ability to read and write the language of this world. He picked up a book titled Swordsmanship Manual. He recalled the goddess's cheerful explanation. In addition to the basic supplies, she had granted him 3 special cheat abilities at random from an ability box. The first of these was Talent for Swordsmanship Medium, With a determined swing, he tested his new aptitude, realizing that with practice, he could become an above-average swordsman. His thoughts turned to the second ability. A sudden jet of water shot into his face, followed by a puff of earth that got sand in his eyes. Finally, a small flame appeared on his fingertip. He grimaced in disappointment. The ability was talent for elemental magic, but the goddess had bluntly labeled it trash. Finally, he considered the third and final ability, which the goddess had called the biggest problem child of the bunch, Dimensional Magic Ultimate. The manual for it was surprisingly simple, featuring a cartoon monkey to illustrate its ease of use. He found the simplicity concerning. It would be a problem if a monkey could truly understand it. The goddess had explained that it was an ancient magic with barely any records left, unlike the more common elemental magics. Despite his reservations, he decided to test it. He took his regular backpack and cast the expansion spell, targeting the space within. His hand sank deep inside, far deeper than the bag's physical dimensions should allow. He realized with a start that this was an incredible ability, effectively a fourth-dimensional pocket. His eyes then fell upon a distant rocky outcrop. Another spell listed was teleportation, and he had found a suitable target. With a flicker of movement, he vanished from a spot and reappeared instantly at the target location. He looked back in amazement, realizing he could teleport immediately. The power was incredible. He stood in awe, gazing out at the vast, alien landscape of his new home. A world of towering rock formations, strange flora, and an immense, ancient-looking tree dominating the horizon. He could hardly believe it. This was the world he had been sent to, a place where he could now live as he pleased. Clenching his fists, he resolved that if he could just master the abilities he'd been given, he could truly thrive here. With these powers, a grin spread across his face. He realized he could stand out while remaining anonymous, perhaps making a name for himself as some sort of mysterious, powerful mage. His excitement grew until he threw his arms up in celebration. Quickly composing himself, he decided on a course of action, find a town and gather information. But just as he made his plan, a distant scream cut through the air, startling him. The sudden cry drew his attention. Shielding his eyes, he peered into the distance and saw what looked like locals being attacked by a giant, lizard-like creature. The scene was too far away to make out clearly. He processed the scene before him. A fantasy world complete with monsters, swords, and magic. A wide, confident smile formed on his face as he realized this was the perfect kind of situation to serve as this world's tutorial event. Meanwhile, the battle raged on. The adventurers were in a dire situation against the massive beast. One lamented their terrible luck, stating they never imagined being attacked from the ground. Another noted that if it hadn't been for Marine's detection magic, some of them might have died instantly. Amidst the chaos, the leader, Aisha, ordered retreat. Lilitan protested, urging Aisha to escape first while she covered the rear. But Aisha, her left arm hanging limp and bloodied, refused, declaring she would take the rear guard. Lilitan questioned how she could possibly fight with only one arm, but Aisha angrily demanded if she understood the situation. She grabbed Lilitan, her expression fierce, and made her promise to survive. Lilitan, tears welling in her eyes, reluctantly agreed. Aisha then gave her final orders. Lilitan was to get out with Saran, while Ween secured their escape route. With a grim smile, Aisha prepared to face the beast. But as the others retreated, Lilitan turned back. Standing alone before the towering monster, she leveled her weapon. She declared that her giant spear would live up to its name, Dragon Hunter, and defiantly challenged the creature to come at her. Her defiant stand ends in an instant. The monster's claw pierces through her, lifting her effortlessly into the air. Below, Aisha can only watch, her face a mask of pure horror. But as despair takes hold, a new figure steps between them and the beast. Turi, his expression twisted into a chilling, predatory grin, points a single finger at the creature. He makes a solemn, terrifying vow, declaring that he will hunt it down. In the midst of a fierce battle, Aisha Garden grits her teeth, acknowledging the immense toughness of the draconic beast before her. She holds her ground, sword at the ready, as her companion Lilitan prepares to strike from another angle. Realizing a direct assault is futile, she forms a new plan. With a determined grin, she decides on a specific weak point and shouts an order to her comrade, telling Lilitan to stab the creature's eyes. Lilitan, though momentarily surprised, immediately moves to comply. The spear wielder lunges with incredible force, her weapon aimed true, causing the very ground beneath her to shatter from the power of her charge. Her attack is violently repelled. Lilitan is thrown backward through the air, her body limp. Aisha screams her name in horror as the dragon roars triumphantly. Nearby, the mage Marine watches, realizing with dread that she must do something. Seeing the dire situation, Marine urges Aisha to run away. But Aisha, clutching her injured arm and looking at her damaged sword, questions what she could possibly do in her weakened condition. The rest of their party lies defeated around them, Saran face down in the dirt, Marine succumbing to her injuries. Bleeding from her mouth, Aisha weakly tells them to save themselves. Her despair is interrupted by a firm hand on her shoulder. Turi stands behind her, rejecting her plea. He looks at her with resolve and states that he will try to get them all out of this alive. His words ignite a fire within her. Aisha stands tall, her expression hardening. She declares herself the leader of Chalkblade and a noble of Housegarden, vowing that she will not let her friends be harmed, even if it costs her own life. As if in response, the dragon begins to gather a massive amount of mana in its jaws, preparing a devastating breath attack. Aisha recognizes the technique, but her resolve does not waver. She screams her defiance, promising to protect her precious friends. At that critical moment, a voice calmly utters a single word: isolation. A massive, shimmering wall of crystalline magic erupts from the earth, shielding Aisha from the imminent blast. He stands before the stunned warrior, his hand outstretched, calmly stating that it would be a hassle if she were to die. Aisha, her face smudged with dirt and tears welling in her eyes from the ordeal, can only stammer in confusion, demanding to know who he is. Still reeling, she struggles to process what just happened, again asking who this mysterious man could possibly be. He, meanwhile, stands apart and quietly wonders to himself if his dramatic entrance was perhaps a bit too plain. The sheer impossibility of the feat registers with the onlookers. One of them realizes in awe that this single individual somehow managed to block the dragon's breath attack all on his own. As the thwarted dragon lets out a low growl, Aisha cautiously approaches the hooded man. She asks what he just did, and he turns to her, casually offering to explain if she truly wants to know. Before he can elaborate, the beast lunges forward, its massive jaws snapping open for another attack. Aisha screams a warning, but the mage merely sighs in annoyance that the scene was ruined, raises a hand, and speaks a single, sharp command: sever. In an instant, an invisible force slices the dragon clean in two. With a confident smirk, he tells the overgrown lizard to know its place and not to mess with his style. The battle is over as suddenly as it began. Aisha, utterly dumbfounded by the display of power, can only repeat her earlier question: "Who in the world are you?" In the background, her defeated party members watch in silent awe. From her position among the injured, Marine the Witch feels a strange sense of recognition. The man's mana feels nostalgic, stirring a question within her mind. Has she forgotten something important? Aisha recovers enough to thank their savior, pressing him for his identity and guessing he might be an adventurer from another town. He dismisses her thanks and her questions, instead holding out a small bottle and insisting she take it first. She recognizes it as a health potion, her face lighting up with relief and gratitude. Now she can provide first aid to her friends. Overwhelmed, she asks how she can possibly repay him for such a valuable item, but he simply tells her not to worry about it. He deflects her gratitude, insisting he didn't act alone. He explains that he only arrived in time because she risked her life to hold the beast at bay, urging her to check on her friends instead. Aisha, taken aback, tries to protest, but ultimately accepts his word for the time being. As she departs, he allows himself a moment of intense self-satisfaction. The thought flashes through his mind: he is unbelievably cool. This was exactly the scenario he had always dreamed of, a hero appearing when things are at their worst, his identity shrouded in mystery. He watches from the trees as Aisha rushes to Marine's side, administering the potion. He reflects that this is why he directed her to her friends. Their well-being is more important than any thanks he might receive. His task complete, he decides it's time to depart. With a final thought for them to do their best and a desire for rumors of his appearance to spread, he casts teleport and vanishes from the forest. Elsewhere, in a bustling adventurers' guild, whispers have already begun to circulate. Patrons trade stories about a mysterious mage, a rumored hero who single-handedly defeated a dragon that even the renowned party, Chalkblade, couldn't manage. The question on everyone's lips is the same: who could he possibly be? Unaware that he is the subject of this gossip, Turi stands at the reception counter, beaming with a wide smile. The guild receptionist officially welcomes him, rookie adventurer Turi-san. As he celebrates his new status, he overhears a nearby adventurer mention the very same mysterious mage, piquing his interest. He turns to the receptionist, asking what's happening. She explains with a weary expression that it's not just the guild. The entire country is going wild over this mysterious figure. She anticipates that extensive search parties will soon be combing the land for him. Turi, surprised, wonders why people wouldn't just be overjoyed that a hero has appeared. Her expression turns grave as she stresses that this can't be taken lightly. The man defeated the legendary dragon, a beast that even the mighty Chalkblade was no match for. The word legendary stops him cold. A nervous sweat breaks out on his face as he realizes he had simply thought it was a giant lizard. The receptionist continues, explaining that the fact he is a complete unknown who accomplished this feat alone is what's causing such a major stir. Trying to grasp the scale of his own actions, he asks the receptionist if the Chalkblade party is truly that incredible. Her professional demeanor breaks into one of pure excitement, and she declares that amazing doesn't even begin to cover it, offering to tell him everything about them. He listens as the guild receptionist begins her explanation of the famed party, Chalkblade. She describes its members, starting with Lilitan the Mighty Spear, a former mercenary of monstrous strength, and Marine the Witch, a powerful archmage who wields 3 distinct elements. Her account continues, introducing Ween the Fire Fairy and Saran the Beast Hunter, who serves as the party scout and master of covert operations. Finally, she names their leader, the genius swordsman, Aisha Garden, the dazzling princess. The receptionist stresses that with two 6-star adventurers, the highest rank attainable, they're the strongest party not just in the city, but in the entire country of Grey Isle. She then asks Turi if he now understands their significance. The full weight of the revelation hits him. His face contorts in shock as he realizes the people he saved were not just skilled, but were national-level heroes. The situation has escalated far beyond the minor rumors he had hoped to generate. Clutching his head, his mind races with panic. All he had wanted was a quiet, relaxing life in this new world, and now he is entangled with its most prominent figures. He desperately wonders what he is supposed to do now. The receptionist notices his distress, pointing out how pale he looks and asking if he's all right. Turi forces a smile, assuring her there's no need to worry, while internally admitting he was just despairing about the entire course of his future life. Meanwhile, elsewhere in a bustling town, Aisha walks with Lily-tan. Aisha expresses her frustration, saying she can't believe their rescuer left without even allowing her to thank him. Lily-tan casually asks if their plan is to go look for the mysterious mage. Aisha's expression hardens with resolve. She declares that they absolutely must find him, no matter what, and that she will use whatever means are necessary. Lily-tan teases her, asking if her method of thanks involves spending the night with him, prompting a flustered denial for relief. Inside the Adventurers Guild office in Boris, Guildmaster Zebras sits at his desk, addressing two women standing before him. One is Aisha Garden, and the other is her companion. He begins his briefing with a simple command. Listen up. The topic of discussion is grave. Dragons are the most dangerous of all monsters, creatures of immense power straight out of fairy tales. To even have a chance in a fight against one, an entire team of 6-star adventurers is required. Back in the office, Aisha's companion admits she has only ever read about such things in books. But Zebras, his expression stern, reveals the unbelievable report he has received. In all his years as guildmaster, he has never heard of anything like it. A single wizard who easily took down one of these legendary beasts by himself. Aisha interrupts, her voice firm and unwavering. She introduces herself as Aisha Garden, leader of Chalkblade, and swears on her name that the report is entirely true. Zebras clarifies that he isn't suspecting her of lying, but the implications are what trouble him. If the story is true, then the identity of this mysterious mage is a matter of great concern. His brow furrows as he considers the possibilities. If this powerful individual is an ally, then all is well. But if he turns out to be an enemy, his existence would constitute nothing less than a national emergency. The conversation triggers a memory for Aisha's companion. She recalls asking Aisha about the mage, noting that Aisha doesn't know who he is. Aisha herself remembers the encounter, touching her chin in thought. She doesn't believe he's a bad person, recalling his parting words. Instead of thanking him, he had simply told her to go check on her friends. 2 weeks later, the scene shifts to the dense forest of no return. A clearing is occupied by a menacing group of monsters, several goblins, and a pair of large, tusked boars. Observing them from the shadows is a hooded figure. He recognizes the goblins as the target for his guild quest and sees the rampaging boars as a welcome bonus. With a confident grin, he declares his identity and intent. I, the dimensional mage Turi, will use you to test out my skills. The monsters, sensing his presence, charge forward with guttural cries. Turi remains perfectly calm, unimpressed by their impatience. He simply extends a gloved hand and utters a single command. Isolation. Instantly, invisible barriers materialize around each creature, halting their charge and trapping them in place. Turi assesses his work with satisfaction. The deployment speed, range, and strength of his barriers are all excellent. He can even deploy multiple at once. With the monsters contained, he raises his hand, preparing for the next step. He unleashes his spell with a confident grin, thanking the horde of monsters for serving as his practice partners. With a single word, sever, the creatures are instantly sliced apart, their bodies bisected by an unseen force. Standing amidst the carnage, he calmly assesses his own power. The spell allows him to sever whatever space he targets, a fact that leads him to a simple conclusion. It is truly a cheat-level ability. He realizes, however, that he cannot rely on talent alone. To become the strongest, he must study and practice more, acknowledging that the more opponents he faces, the more his spatial coordinates can be thrown off. His determination is renewed. He arrives back in the town of Boris, hauling the carcass of a large tusked beast over his shoulders. Entering the Adventurers Guild, he approaches the counter and greets the receptionist, Elise, asking her to confirm his quest completion. She observes the goblin ears and the large fong, noting that he gathered more materials than last time. After reviewing the items, Elise, the receptionist for the Boars branch, offers a warm smile. She officially declares his quest complete and thanks him for his hard work. He admits to her that he had been worried about standing out too much, but has instead found himself simply completing guild quests and living an unexpectedly worry-free life. Elise responds cheerfully that he seems to be doing very well for himself. She then points out with some surprise that he's already a 2-star adventurer, despite having registered just the other day. Turi gives a slightly embarrassed laugh and thanks her. His expression turns serious as he explains that while he knows it won't happen overnight, he needs to become a 3-star adventurer soon to make a proper living. As he speaks, Elise quietly urges him to look over at a nearby table. Following her gaze, he sees 2 other adventurers. One, Rudy, smirks about the rumored old man adventurer. His companion joins in the mockery, asking if Turi is the one whose life's purpose is to be a 2-star. Elise, overhearing them, sharply tells them to stop, calling them rude. The mocking adventurer leans forward, insisting it's the truth. He explains that since people can become adventurers at 15, a 25-year-old is practically a grandpa in the field. He then addresses Turi directly with a sneer. Right, Mr. Old Rookie? Turi forces a strained laugh, internally seething. Elise observes the other adventurers, concluding that their mockery stems from insecurity. They're scared. She realizes that the newcomer might one day overtake them. He turns to her, asking if he is drawing unwanted attention. He explains that while even 3-star adventurers struggle with a single rampage fawn, he dispatched one with ease. He admits with a sweat drop that he only hunted it because it was worth more than goblins, and wonders aloud if he got a little carried away. Elise smiles warmly, assuring him she wouldn't go that far. She continues, however, warning that if word got out he had taken down more than one by himself, it would cause a massive uproar. The warning triggers a sudden, sharp memory of him using his sever spell to effortlessly slice through a horde of monsters. The realization hits him with force. That was a close call. He grimaces, thankful he wasn't greedy enough to take on more than one. From now on, he decides he must think more carefully about his actions, perhaps even adopting the persona of a mysterious mage in secret. His internal panic manifests as a frantic expression, prompting Elise to ask if something is wrong. He quickly denies it, claiming it happens often, but his strained smile and trembling do little to convince her. Internally, he admits his heart nearly stopped. Elsewhere, Marine the Witch sits alone, lost in thought. The moniker Old Rookie echoes in her mind as she contemplates Turi. She questions if it's possible for him to be connected to the mysterious mage. Her suspicion is fueled by a wanted poster she examines. It depicts a hooded figure and asks for any information to be reported to the guild or to the party chalkblade, noting the suspect has black hair and a black robe. Meanwhile, Turi walks through a bustling market, reminding himself of the need for caution. His thoughts are interrupted when a vendor calls out, offering him a magic lamp. The man enthusiastically explains that it's a long-lasting magic tool made of high-purity high-rocane that creates light from fire mana. He considers the item, noting that while he can use fire magic himself, the lamp is still an option. Seeing his hesitation, the vendor urges him to stop thinking, grinning as he promises to make it cheap. Turi is taken aback by the aggressive sales pitch. He was interrupted by a clear voice. A young woman in a hooded robe stepped forward, declaring that the high-rocane the vendor was peddling was of terrible quality, riddled with impurities. As the flustered merchant tried to object, Turi turned to the newcomer, asking who she was. Her gaze fixed on him, and she simply replied, "A wizard." She then turned her attention fully to Turi, explaining that it was fine. She simply happened to notice the item and felt compelled to warn him. Immensely grateful, he thanked her, admitting his own inexperience in discerning the value of such materials. Realizing they hadn't formally met, he smiled and introduced himself as Turi. The wizard reciprocated, stating her name was Marine. To show his gratitude, he asked if there was anything he could do to thank her, suggesting a meal. But as he spoke her name again, a flicker of recognition sparked within him. He felt certain he had heard the name Marine somewhere before, though he quickly tried to dismiss the feeling as his imagination. As a reward for her earlier advice, Higashiyama Turi gave a cheerful thumbs up, declaring that buying her a treat is a small price to pay. His companion, Marine, considers his offer and then states her request. She would like some snacks. He leads her to a bakery stall filled with an assortment of pastries and donuts. Turning to her, Turi asks which one she would like, gesturing towards the delicious-looking display. After a moment of consideration, she points not to a single item, but to the entire selection. With perfect seriousness, she declares that she wants all of them, much to Turi's surprise. He stammers, suggesting they get just half. Marine looks back at him, her expression making it clear she doesn't understand why that would even be a consideration, questioning his lack of comprehension. Changing his approach, he points to another tray of fried snacks, enthusiastically describing their crunchy exterior and luxurious dried fruit fillings. He explains that the variety of fruits makes each bite a unique and fun experience. Seeing her interest, he concedes that he understands now just how much she likes her snacks. Moments later, Marine sits with her cheeks puffed out, happily munching on the mountain of treats they purchased. She mumbles that they are tasty, prompting a bemused Turi to remind her not to talk with her mouth full. As she continues to eat, he sits beside her on a bench, sighing as he calculates the cost. He laments that he'll have to take on more quests now, but quickly resigns himself to the fact, admitting that he was the one who suggested it. His resignation turns to shock when he glances over. The massive pile of snacks has vanished. He stares in disbelief, realizing she devoured everything in mere seconds. Marine, however, simply pats her stomach with a satisfied sigh, declaring that it hit the spot. She calmly states that snack time is bliss, and that snacks are meant to be swallowed whole. Turi, watching her intense expression, can only think to himself how scary she is. Her intensity fades as she turns to him with a soft, sincere expression. She thanks him, telling him he's a good person. The genuine comment catches Turi off guard, and he realizes with a jolt just how naive she is, so innocent she might follow a stranger who offered her candy. He and Marine paused before a shop displaying a magic lamp. Marine, curious, asked why a swordsman like him would be interested in magic tools, explaining that only mages can truly use them. She conceded that some swordsmen possess mana, but the distinction remained. Turi confirmed her suspicion, admitting he was indeed looking at the lamp. She further clarified the fundamental difference between the two concepts. Mana and magic, she explained, are separate things. Mana is like raw ingredients. It must be transformed into an element to become magic, much like cooking ingredients to make a dish. This fundamental principle was the source of her confusion. In response to her detailed explanation, he offered a simple truth. He can use magic, too, though he admitted he is quite terrible at it. The revelation stunned Marine, who could only stare in disbelief and question the nature of his mana. She then presented him with a dark, crystalline pendant, identifying it as black high-rocane. She urged him to channel his mana into the object. Confused by the sudden request, he simply asked why. Her expression was insistent. Please, she urged, just do it. Though he didn't fully understand, he complied, taking the crystal and asking if this was what she wanted. As he channeled his mana, the black high-rocane erupted with a brilliant light. Marine's eyes widened in astonishment. Can you use amazing magic? She asked, her voice filled with awe. The term was unfamiliar to him, and he could only repeat it in confusion. She elaborated, asking if his magic was on the level of what saved her party, Chalkblade, powerful enough to defeat an earth dragon. The direct question caught him off guard, and a strained, nervous grin spread across his face. His mind raced with panic. He frantically thought about how close she was to discovering his identity and the potential consequences, like being arrested. Outwardly, he laughed it off, claiming there was no way he possessed such power. As he struggled to maintain his composure, Marine explained that the stone reacts to a user's attributes, and she had never seen a shine with 3 distinct colors before. The sight of the multi-hued glow made him realize his mistake. He had been careless. He processed her words, concluding that the display must mean he could use 4 attributes. Marine confirmed his deduction, stating that if he truly could, he was an amazing mage. She explained that most people are limited to a single attribute. This was news to him. He had always considered his own abilities with water, wind, and earth to be merely pretty amazing, not exceptionally rare. He immediately became flustered, waving his hands dismissively. He insisted that wasn't what he meant, explaining that while he could use 4 elements, his proficiency with them was quite poor. Marine stared back, her expression unimpressed, and retorted that she didn't want to hear such complaints from someone who could wield more attributes than she could. She reflected on her own abilities, her expression hardening with resolve. Magic was frustrating, but it was also the one thing she refused to be defeated in. She looked down, her voice quiet as Turi addressed her. It was, she admitted, the only thing she truly had. Her somber mood vanished in an instant. With a sudden burst of energy, she declared she wanted some snacks and would be right back after buying more, leaving Turi flabbergasted at her appetite. He sat waiting on a bench outside the guild hall. 20 minutes passed, and he began to wonder if she was planning to return with a mountain of food. His thoughts were interrupted by 2 familiar adventurers, Rudy and his companion. They approached with smirks, mockingly asking what he and Marine had been talking about, and if he had begged her to help raise his rank. As they continued to taunt him, Marine returned, her arms full of snacks. She stopped short, overhearing them call Turi an oddball, and remarking with mock respect how shameless he was. She listened from a distance, her expression unreadable. The condescending adventurer went on, stating that he was really disappointed in Marine for associating with someone like Turi. He scoffed, adding that he used to really respect her, but couldn't be helped if she took pity on a guy like that. His insults grew sharper as he laughed, calling her an oddball who had nothing going for her besides her magic. The words struck Marine, her eyes widening in shock and hurt. Rudy half-heartedly suggested his friend was being rude, but the other dismissed it. Just then, Turi stepped forward, his face cast in shadow. "Hey," he said, his voice low and firm. "You better cut that out." The adventurer whirled around, incensed that the old rookie would dare to lecture him. He fixes the 2 adventurers with a hard stare, his voice laced with cold anger. He states that he doesn't care what they say about him, but he forbids them from mocking people who are earnestly working hard. His sudden intensity stuns the 2 men, who react with shocked outrage. They demand to know what his problem is and aggressively ask if he wants to know what happens to those who defy them. From a short distance, Marine looks on, her eyes wide with surprise. Just as the confrontation escalates, Marine's calm voice cuts through the tension. Having returned with her snacks, she stands a few feet away and coolly asks what exactly would happen. Her presence completely changes the dynamic. The adventurer's bravado evaporates, replaced by sheer terror as they stammer that people like them would never dare do anything to her. Unfazed, Marine offers to teach them all about it. The implied threat sends them into a panic. They immediately prostrate themselves on the ground, shouting that her offer is out of the question. As they scramble away, Turi turns to Marine, asking if she heard everything. She quietly confirms that she did. Now that they are alone, Marine thanks him. Turi smiles warmly, explaining that he only spoke his mind and genuinely thinks she is an amazing person. Her expression remains serious as she asks why he believes that. He elaborates, explaining that he admires how earnestly she works at magic. He admits, with a thoughtful expression, that he is almost jealous of her dedication. Marine seems taken aback by his reasoning. His jealousy stems from a place of personal regret. He confesses that in his previous life, he always made excuses and never truly worked hard to get good at anything. Because of this past, he looks at her with genuine admiration and tells her she is a very special and enchanting person. He immediately becomes flustered, hastily clarifying that he meant her personality was enchanting. Marine, however, seems puzzled by the word itself. Her response is not what he expected. She turns away slightly, stating that she doesn't like being praised by anyone unless they are better than her. Turi can only offer a quiet apology. He continues to dismiss his own abilities, declaring his magic is trash and that he cannot be a mage. Unbeknownst to him, Marine finds his earlier praise surprisingly pleasant. His self-deprecation, however, clearly irritates her. As he turns to leave, she calls out for him to wait. He looks back, surprised, as she suddenly tosses him the piece of high-hyrocane he had given her. Holding the valuable metal, he is taken aback when she asks for his name, questioning if he hadn't already told her. He then formally introduces himself, Turi, the 2-star rookie. She admits to being bad with names, but assures him it's all right. He expresses his hope that she'll remember it this time, but her reply trails off, leaving her thought unfinished as she gazes at him. Stepping closer, her gaze remains intense as she confesses there is someone she is curious about. Turi's face flushes, his mind reeling as he wonders if she could possibly be referring to him. His mind races with possibilities, a strained smile plastered on his face. He frantically wonders if she still suspects him of being the mysterious mage, or if he simply made an impression by feeding her snacks. He awkwardly parts ways with Marine, deciding he needs to take on more guild quests. Upon entering the guild hall, he is greeted warmly by the receptionist, who welcomes Turi-san. Before he can respond, Marine appears beside him, asking what's wrong. With a weary expression, he laments that both his heart and his wallet are under severe strain. He turns to the counter and explains his purpose for being there, to take another quest. The receptionist regretfully informs him that, regarding 2-star quests, they are practically all gone. He reacts with shock, demanding to know why. The receptionist explains that the adventurers who were harassing him previously took all the available quests, most likely as a way to interfere with him. The realization fills Turi with rage. He stood before the quest board, his options depleted. The only task remaining was a 1-star request to investigate a kobold nest. The guild receptionist advised that even scouting was too dangerous to do alone, but with no other choice, he reluctantly asked to accept the simple quest. Just as he resigned himself to his fate, a familiar voice called out his name. It was Marine, the young mage, greeting him once again. The receptionist turned to her, asking if her wounds from the Earth Dragon fight had healed. Marine confirmed she was fully recovered and had been looking for a warm-up, then pointedly asked if the receptionist would accept the quest. Before the receptionist could respond, Marine declared that she and Turi would take the kobold nest investigation together. Turi was stunned, wondering why she would partner with him. He questioned if she was observing him, trying to determine if he was the mysterious mage she had encountered before. She seemed to read his thoughts, explaining that it simply looked like he was in trouble. With a cheerful smile, she added that she wouldn't mind if he repaid her with snacks. Turi's suspicion instantly vanished, replaced by the relieved realization that she was just an enthusiast for sweets. Following through on her request, they sat in an eatery. Turi noted that she had just eaten a mountain of snacks, but Marine patted her stomach, claiming to have a second one, just for such occasions. She then eagerly suggested they order a rampage fong steak, leaving Turi to marvel that her appetite was the most fantastical element he'd yet encountered in this world. The scene at the guild counter continued, with the receptionist looking at Turi in disbelief. She asked him how he came to know Marine-san. Confused by her intense reaction, Turi asked if Marine was famous, prompting an exasperated cry from the receptionist, who reminded him she'd told him before. She explained that Marine is a 6-star archmage, known as the Witch, and a member of the party Chalkblade. The name struck Turi with the force of a physical blow. He collapsed to his knees in horror, realizing that Chalkblade was the very group of rivals trying to sabotage him, and he had just partnered with. Inside a tavern, Higashiyama Turi and Marine sit across from each other, discussing a quest posting. Turi examines the paper, which depicts a bipedal, rat-like monster, and wonders aloud how long the quest will take. Marine informs him that it would normally require 2 to 3 days, noting that it's a difficult quest that would even require a 2-star adventurer to team up. He processes this, looking thoughtful. She clarifies that for today, their only task is reconnaissance, to determine the nest location and size. With that limited scope, she confidently states they can probably take care of it in a single day. Turi smiles, relieved to hear the news. His reaction prompts her to ask if he is nervous, considering it's his first investigation quest. He stammers an affirmative, admitting that he is. Trying to soothe his nerves, Marine tells him to relax, reassuring him that she will be there with him. She then flashes a confident smile and a peace sign, proudly declaring that despite her appearance, she is a 6-star mage from the renowned party, Chalkblade. This revelation has the opposite effect on Turi, who realizes with dread that her high status is precisely what's making him nervous, as he now has to spend a whole day with someone so famous. Later that evening, Turi arrives at an inn, announcing his return. A small, cheerful girl named Lipchan immediately runs to greet him, welcoming him back and noting that he must be tired from work. He smiles, calling her a good kid for coming to greet him, and she beams, replying that it's her job. He steps further inside where a large, bald man with a goatee greets him as well. This is Goliath, the manager of the inn. Turi internally reflects on how cute and soothing Lip is. Goliath offers him dinner, which has been ready for a while, but Turi decides to drop off his belongings in his room first. Lip proudly informs Goliath that she helped make dinner. Hearing this, Goliath sweeps his daughter into a crushing hug, doting on her and exclaiming that she's the best and makes him so happy he could cry. Turi watches the scene, simply thinking that Lip is very cute. Goliath, however, catches his stare and misinterprets it, turning on him with a menacing glare and demanding to know what he's thinking. The innkeeper's protective rage boils over as he shouts at Turi, warning him not to get any ideas about calling him father-in-law. Unfazed, Turi gives a simple, deadpan response, "I won't." The narrative establishes Turi's current base of operations, a large, somewhat run-down and named Tranquility, situated on the outskirts of the town of Boris. While calling the inn flourishing would be an overstatement, its quiet, out-of-the-way nature is exactly what Turi needs. After all the trouble involving the Earth Dragon, a place away from prying eyes is a welcome respite. He presents the innkeeper, Goliath, with a gift of rampage fong meat, apologizing for any trouble he's caused. The large man accepts it, while his daughter Lip looks on. Goliath then turns away, muttering to himself about how pathetic he feels. The innkeeper's mood brightens as he thanks Turi, explaining that Lip has been smiling much more lately. Turi replies that her smile is more than enough payment. Goliath's gratitude quickly shifts back to his overprotective nature, however, as he sternly declares that no matter how kind Turi is, he will never give him his daughter. Sometime later, he is outside in the yard, diligently practicing his swordsmanship. He pauses his training for a moment, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. Goliath emerges from the inn, calling out to him. The large man observes that Turi is giving it his all, training from dawn, just as he always does. Turi smiles, explaining that since he only has medium talent, he feels it would be a waste not to work as hard as he can. Goliath laughs, calling it a mature decision, then asks if Turi has heard the latest rumor. The innkeeper elaborates, his expression serious. He says that the famous party, Chalkblade, is desperately searching for a mysterious mage who recently appeared in the area. He feigns surprise, remarking that it's hard to believe such a person exists. Internally, however, Turi breaks into a cold sweat, realizing with dread that his blunder on his first day has become the talk of the town. Goliath adds that he even heard that Marine the Witch tearfully admitted the new mage was better than her. The news sends a jolt of panic through Turi, who now understands he's the subject of this terrifying rumor and worries what will happen if Marine hears it. His fears are immediately realized. While walking with Marine, she turns and asks if he's heard the rumor going around, the one about her crying and admitting defeat. Turi freezes, understanding it's already too late. She puffs her cheeks, vowing that she'll never forgive that mage. A confused Turi asks why she's mad at him, only for her to clarify. She's not angry about the rumor, but because he hasn't given her any luxury snacks. Turi sighs in relief, thankful for her priorities, but still advises her to keep her guard up. He looks around in surprise, asking if she has created a barrier. Marine calmly confirms that it's no problem, as she has already put one in place. As they walk through the woods, he peers into the air and notices a faint film, confirming her claim. He asks when she managed to cast it, and she simply agrees with his observation. She explains that it is a water barrier, a defense formidable enough that the monsters in the area could never break it. He is astounded, admitting he never knew such a thing even existed. His awe seems to please her, as she puffs out her chest and asks if he thinks she's more amazing. When he asks for a point of comparison, she just scoffs playfully. Despite her display of power, he clenches a fist, feeling a surge of confidence in his own abilities. He reflects on his own dimensional magic, specifically the isolation skill. In his mind, there is no contest. His ability is far more amazing. He immediately checks his pride, however, acknowledging that comparing a power granted by God to normal skills would be unfair. The thought leaves him wondering about the true extent of a 6-star adventurer's strength. His gaze falls upon Marine. He muses that she just seems like an ordinary, cute girl with a childish personality. It's difficult for him to reconcile this image with the title of a 6-star archmage, making him question her reputed power. Suddenly, a loud growl echoes through the quiet woods. He spins around, startled, assuming a monster has appeared, but quickly realizes his mistake. The sound came from Marine, who sheepishly admits it was just her stomach. Turi throws his head back in exasperation, realizing it's simply lunchtime. She pouts, calling him a meanie before insisting they stop to eat right away. Following her demand, they make camp. As he takes a bite of food, Turi hesitantly admits that since he's new to all of this, he's a bit unsure. He questions Marine about the propriety of eating snacks while on duty. With her mouth full, she dismisses his concern, calling him ignorant. In response, she explains that these are not mere snacks, but revolutionary, nutritionally balanced rations specifically designed for adventurers, containing essential calories, vitamins, and minerals. After calling him fussy, she abruptly changes the subject, asking about the rumor he had heard earlier. Turi, taken aback by the detailed explanation, can only apologize for his naivete. Following her lead, he asks why her party, Chalkblade, is so desperate to find the mysterious mage. He speculates it might be to thank him for the rescue, but Marine clarifies that while that is part of it, they cannot ignore someone of his stature. Turi muses that the mage doesn't seem like a bad person and questions if letting him roam free is truly a problem. Marine gravely confirms that it is a huge problem, regardless of the mage's morality. To emphasize her point, Marine reveals that the mage wields power comparable to the hero from a well-known fairy tale, showing him an illustration of a warrior battling a dragon. She asserts that simply letting such an individual roam free is far too dangerous. Turi is stunned by the revelation, stammering in disbelief about the hero. His shock gives way to a frantic internal monologue. He is momentarily thrilled at the thought of being compared to a legendary hero, but his excitement quickly sours as he realizes the grave implications. If his identity is exposed, he can no longer operate as a mysterious, unknown mage. Forcing a smile, he internally curses his predicament, wondering what he is doing traveling with someone who is actively trying to unmask him. Marine watches him, a questioning look on her face. He plays along, remarking that he understands now and that she had better find this powerful mage. Marine simply agrees with him. Her agreement is followed by a personal admission. She also wants to meet the mage for her own reasons. Surprised, Turi asks her why. Her expression shifts to one of mischievous anger. She declares that one reason is to make the person who spread the groundless rumor that the mage is stronger than her pay for it. Turi freezes, realizing with dawning horror that he was the one who said that. Before he can process this, she continues, stating another reason is the mage's mana. She describes it as feeling weirdly nostalgic, though she admits she doesn't understand why. She believes she might be able to figure it out if she could just meet him. She concludes her story, asking Turi to inform her if he learns anything about the mysterious mage, vowing to find him regardless. Turi agrees outwardly, but internally he begs for the topic to be dropped. He shifts his focus as they arrive at their destination, a kobold nest carved into a rocky outcrop. He recalls that while their strength is comparable to goblins, their speed and coordination make them a challenge, even for 3-star adventurers. Marine adds a crucial detail, reminding him of their keen sense of smell and the need to remain downwind. Despite her warning, he sees the kobolds turning in their direction. He questions her confidence, but Marine remains calm until a sudden realization dawns on her. The cinnamon apple pie she packed for a snack might have given them away. Turi reacts with disbelief as she tells him to just watch. Before he can protest further, Marine unleashes a powerful spell. A massive cube of water materializes and slams down on the lead kobold, crushing it instantly. Turi can only watch in shock. His shock gives way to exasperated disbelief. He realizes that despite her immense power, she can be incredibly careless. Resigning himself to the situation, he draws his sword. With no other choice, he leaps into the fray, declaring himself the next kobold's opponent. He moves with blinding speed, his blade slicing cleanly through the creature. One is down, but he notes their quickness. If they coordinate their attack, he'll be overwhelmed. As if on cue, another kobold lunges, using its fallen comrade as a feint. Marine cries out a warning from behind, but he realizes their true aim too late. The creature was a diversion. He spins just in time, impaling the flanking kobold, but not before its claws tear across his side. He grits his teeth against the pain, assessing the wound as minor, but acknowledging the danger of their coordinated tactics. His gaze settles on the last remaining creature. With its packmates gone, he feels confident he can manage the final opponent with his sword alone. He braced for a final, one-on-one confrontation, but his relief shattered as a horde of kobolds poured out from the darkness of the nest, their eyes gleaming with malice. His mind raced with panic. With so many foes, a direct fight was impossible, yet his dimensional magic was unusable here. A cold dread washed over him as he faced the grim reality that he was about to die. Before the monsters could close in, Marine cast a spell, encasing the charging kobolds in individual spheres of water she called a water prison. Turi turned to her, apologizing for getting her hurt, but she assured him it was nothing. He was stunned, asking if she had truly done all of this herself. Impressed by the power of a 6-star adventurer, her display of power was not over. She began to gather a monstrously huge ball of water above her staff, announcing her next spell, Giant Water Bomb. Turi could only stare, aghast at the sheer scale of the magic being summoned. With a quick apology to Turi for what was to come, she unleashed the spell. A colossal torrent of water erupted forward, blasting through the cavern with overwhelming force. In the aftermath, Turi stood dumbfounded. Marine explained that while the mission was meant to be a simple investigation, she ended up taking out all the monsters. With a cheerful smile and a victory sign, she declared that all was well. He surveyed the scene of total devastation, realizing he had seriously underestimated the power of six-star adventurers and the party known as Chalkblade. The thought was deeply unsettling. Such incredible people were after him, the same adventurers who had been unable to defeat the Earth Dragon he had killed. The power disparity was confusing and alarming. As they walked back toward the city, Marine announced she was going to get some snacks, completely unfazed by the battle. Turi, still reeling, could only question how she could possibly be hungry again so soon. Later, Marine reported to her leader, Aisha, who remarked that it was rare for Marine to take an interest in someone. Marine admitted she was surprised herself, finding Turi to be funny and interesting. Aisha's expression grew thoughtful. First the mysterious mage, now this rookie adventurer. She resolved that they had better keep a close. Higashiyama Turi's goal in this new world was simple: to stand out as the strongest mage while quietly enjoying a good drink and snack, listening to rumors about his own legendary exploits. But on his very first day after reincarnating, he had stood out far more than intended, leaving no time to enjoy that drink. That had been the plan, at least. He resolved to be more careful in how he acted as a mage from now on, determined that this time he would finally enjoy that drink. His newfound determination was instantly shattered. He spotted Marine the witch trailing him down an alleyway, and a wave of panic washed over him. He frantically wondered why the one person he most wanted to avoid was tailing him, and why she was so terrible at it. He feared the worst, that she had somehow discovered his true identity. He tried to calm himself, reasoning that it couldn't be possible. When he had saved Aisha's party, he had used dimensional magic to hide his identifying features and had even altered his voice. There was no way she could know. With this thought, he continued on his way, trying his best to avoid doing anything suspicious. He glanced back, confirming Marine was still following, her intentions a complete mystery. Just then, Aisha's voice called out, asking what he was doing. Before he could respond, Marine caught up, addressing him as Marine-san. He sighed, telling her again to drop the formal honorific. She pouted in response. He couldn't help but notice that she had started getting closer to him ever since he gave her some snacks. This growing closeness, however, had come at a cost. His reputation had hit rock bottom, with everyone believing he was manipulating the young witch. He overheard whispers that he was constantly clinging to her, even bribing her party, Chalkblade. The danger of her discovering his identity made him want to keep his distance. Yet, he couldn't bring himself to push her away. He turned to her and apologized, explaining that he didn't like her using sand because they were friends. He admitted to himself that she was his very first friend in this world. Taking his words as an opening, Marine asked if he was free for the day. He was taken aback by her directness. She leaned in closer, her expression serious, and asked if he wanted to do some bad stuff with her. Turi's face flushed with shock and confusion, a reaction mirrored by spying Aisha. The true meaning of her words was far stranger than he could have imagined. Marine appeared, drenched in honey and holding a dipper, offering him a taste. The bizarre invitation left both Turi and Aisha utterly bewildered, questioning what on earth she could possibly mean by doing bad stuff. Her ambiguous offer left Turi completely bewildered, prompting him to ask for clarification. Nearby, a concealed Aisha panicked, convinced she needed to intervene before Marine made a terrible mistake. She then explained her true meaning. She wanted to go eat a super sweet calorie bomb, a dessert so dense with calories that it would be a bad idea to have it before working. The mundane reality of her invitation stunned Turi. He sighed, a mix of relief and exasperation on his face, and agreed to join her, admitting to himself that he should have expected something like this. From her hiding spot, Aisha winced, realizing she needed to seriously reflect on her own wild assumptions. Sometime later, the three were seated at a cafe. As Marine began to eat an enormous dessert, Aisha, having decided to join them, asked if Turi was also having the bomb. He gestured to his own, much smaller portion, stating it was more than enough for him. Their meal was interrupted when Marine announced the return of Saran. Turi looked up, recognizing the name of Chalkblade's vice leader as the masked woman approached their table. She confirmed that Saran had finally recovered from the dragon fight. Turi expressed his sincere relief, glad to hear the good news. He felt a sense of peace, thinking that with Saran back, Chalkblade would soon be operational again. His thoughts were cut short, however, when Marine softly spoke his name, drawing his attention. She looked at him wistfully, explaining that Saran's return meant she wouldn't be able to spend as much time with him. Turi realized how much she valued their friendship. She offered him the rest of her dessert, then quickly retracted it, asking instead for a bite of his. Before he could respond, she held a piece of his dessert up to his lips, instructing him to say, "Ah." A flustered Turi insisted he could eat it himself, while an equally flustered Aisha urged him from the side to just comply. As he reluctantly opened his mouth, he was suddenly pulled backward. Aisha had intervened, yanking him away from the table and shouting at Marine to get away from her master, calling her a beast. Turi was left completely stunned by the sudden, aggressive outburst. He finds himself suddenly confronted by an irate young mage, identified as Ween, the fire fairy of Chalkblade. She points an accusatory finger, demanding to know who he is. Marine steps between them, urging Ween to calm down and explaining that Turi is her friend. Unconvinced, Ween insists to her master that Turi is a trickster. When Marine asks Turi if he's using her, he flatly denies it, which only enrages Ween further. She clenches her fist in frustration, muttering under her breath about her master's naivete. Ween laments that she cannot bring herself to trust a beast like him so easily. He watches her, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Turi recalls that this girl is well known in the city of Boris as Marine's crazy disciple. As Ween fawns over Marine's supposed purity, Marine tries to de-escalate, telling Turi they should go home and fabricating a story about an emergency meeting. He smiles gently, telling her not to worry about him. Despite his words, he admits to himself that honestly, he'll feel a little lonely. His honesty seems to touch her. Marine apologizes, admitting it was her fault for getting him swept up in this. She tells him that his reaction was just like her, and then softly urges him to finish his sweets. He offers a simple thanks in response. Marine adds that she will miss him too, which makes Turi inwardly cringe, thinking that her forced cheerfulness is actually more painful to hear. He walks alone through the city streets, sighing in exasperation. The goal of standing out while keeping his identity hidden seems increasingly difficult. His frustration mounts. He realizes that if such high-profile people keep following him around, he won't be able to maintain his secret mage persona at all. He reflects that he only managed to play that role on his very first day. To reach his goal, he concludes that he'll have to deal with this girl soon. Unseen by him, Marine peeks out from behind a building, watching him go. His thoughts are interrupted by a voice calling his name. A man with spiky, light-toned hair and a large sword on his shoulder blocks his path, identifying him as Turi, the old rookie. Turi, annoyed by the lack of introduction, coolly asks who he might be. He found himself confronted by the spiky-haired adventurer, who, with a malicious grin, deliberately spilled a drink onto his leg. "Whoops," the man said with false innocence. "My bad." The confrontation moved to a quieter alleyway, where Turi felt a strange, unsettling mana emanating from his opponent. Rudy gestured vaguely, questioning why a certain person had taken such an interest in Turi. With a confident smirk, Rudy declared that at this distance, he could go all out without worrying about killing him. He punctuated the threat by stomping his foot, shattering the cobblestones beneath it, while Turi wondered what the man was planning. The adventurer then lunged forward, shouting that he should introduce himself properly. But before he could close the distance, a flash of steel and light-colored hair erupted between them, stopping him in his tracks and leaving Turi stunned. The intervening figure was none other than the warrior Marine. With a small, ornate dagger pressed firmly against Rudy's throat, she calmly apologized for her own late introduction, identifying herself as Aisha Garden, the leader of Chalkblade. Stunned and enraged, Rudy demanded to know why she was protecting Turi. Aisha coolly replied that he was asking the wrong person, implying his own actions were the ones that needed questioning. She turned her gaze back towards the aggressor, her expression firm. She asked rhetorically if a reason was truly necessary to protect someone. A cold sweat broke out on Rudy's face as the reality of his situation sank in. He stammered, nervously asking if her blade had cut anything. His fears were confirmed, though not in the way he expected. His thick leather belt had been sliced clean through, its buckle falling away. As his trousers began to slip, Rudy let out a panicked cry. Aisha, with perfect composure, sheathed her small blade and offered a simple, almost mocking, apology. She turns to Turi, a slight smile on her lips, and asks if her actions were perhaps improper for a lady. Turi can only stare, speechless. In the background, the humiliated Rudy pulls up his trousers, cursing his inability to challenge anyone from Chalkblade and vowing that she will remember this day. As they walk away from the scene, she muses aloud, wondering who that man was and admitting that the encounter bothers her. Turi catches up, addressing her formally as Aisha-san from Chalkblade. She turns to face him, acknowledging his name, Turi-san. She mentions having heard about him and notes that her party member, Marine, has apparently been in his care. He formally introduces himself as a rookie adventurer named Turi and expresses his sincere gratitude for her intervention. Her composure breaks slightly as she insists, with exaggerated emphasis, that her presence was a pure coincidence. She claims that ending up saving a friend of Marine's was just a matter of chance. Turi agrees verbally, but internally, he observes that she is remarkably bad at lying. As he observes her, Aisha's expression shifts. She leans in slightly, a look of dawning realization on her face, and asks if they have met somewhere before. The question startles Turi, who immediately denies it, insisting that she must be mistaken. She seems to accept his denial for the moment. Announcing that she will report the incident to the guild, she prepares to take her leave. A flustered Turi agrees enthusiastically, adding that she is right to be curious about the man who attacked him. As she walks away down the street, she calls back over her shoulder, hoping they will meet again. Turi watches her depart, silently questioning why she had been following him at all. His thoughts turn inward, A wide, genuine smile spreads across his face as he realizes just how cool she was. The smile quickly fades, replaced by a grimace of self-reproach. He feels pathetic, acknowledging that despite receiving powerful abilities, he is nothing compared to her. He recalls the recent investigation quest, a flash of memory reminding him of his own powerlessness during the crisis. He couldn't do anything then, either. Standing alone in the street, he clenches his fist in frustration. The reality of his situation settles in. This is a world where his life is in constant danger. He understands that if not for others saving him, he would already be dead twice over. He can't even protect himself, let alone pursue his foolish ambition of becoming the strongest. He walks away from the inn, his face a mask of grim self-assessment. The encounter with Aisha has left a bitter taste, and a single thought echoes in his mind. He is utterly lame. But this feeling of inadequacy quickly hardens into resolve. His eyes narrow with determination as he decides to reignite his spirit. He vows to work even harder, promising himself that he will earn the right to finally enjoy his drink. With this newfound purpose, he announces his departure from the inn, telling the innkeeper Goliath and the young girl Lip that he has something he must do. They see him off with well wishes for a good and safe day. He strides into the Adventurers Guild and approaches the front desk. He confidently informs the receptionist that he wants to take the 3-star promotion exam in order to gain more experience on his own. The receptionist looks up, startled, asking if she heard him correctly. Her surprise gives way to a polite but firm correction. She explains that the 3-star promotion exam is an escort quest, and as such, he cannot accept it alone. Turi is taken aback by this unexpected rule. She elaborates, stating that the guild, in fact, recommends that adventurers never operate solo, as there are inherent limits to what a single person can achieve. Turi listens, beginning to understand the logic. He questions what his options are, given his solo status. The receptionist suggests he could form a temporary party with another solo adventurer or ask to join an existing one. Nearby, other adventurers murmur that the exam is specifically designed to test teamwork, which is why passing it unlocks more quest types. Taking her advice to heart, he turns to the bustling guild hall. He calls out to the crowd, asking if anyone would be willing to help him with his promotion quest. The response is immediate and hostile. The adventurers in the hall erupt in scorn, questioning who would ever team up with him. They declare it's his punishment for being friendly with Marine-san, openly admitting their jealousy and wishing they were close to her and her party, Chalkblade. Instead, stunned into silence by the collective rejection, Turi stands bewildered, wondering what to do. The receptionist grimly suggests he could wait months for new adventurers who haven't heard the rumors. At that moment, a clear voice cuts through his confusion, offering an alternative. Then why don't you come with us? He instantly recognizes the voice as he looks down at a pair of familiar armored boots. The offer came from Aisha, the renowned leader of the party, Chalkblade. Her formidable group of adventurers stood with her. A confident swordsman, a hooded scout, a pouting mage, and a gentle-looking cleric. Faced with this unbelievable proposition, he was utterly stunned. He stammered that he could never become their teammate, questioning why this was happening as he felt they lived in a completely different world from his own. As the scene shifted, his internal thoughts echoed his confusion, wondering why he kept getting involved with them. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, the adventurer who had previously harassed Turi was being harshly reprimanded. A man with long, dark hair berated him, stating he had been told to investigate the old rookie, not attack him. The subordinate bowed low, apologizing profusely for his actions. The terrified man, addressing his superior as Ikin-sama, desperately promised he wouldn't let him down next time and swore he would be useful. His plea was met with a sharp blow. Ikins declared there would be no next time for the useless and called him an idiot, then ordered another subordinate to clean up the trash. Turning his attention to a different subordinate, Ikins issued a new command, spread more rumors about the old rookie. He explained that things would be much easier for them if Turi was isolated. The subordinate agreed, though he seemed to question his leader's methods. The leader, identifying himself as Arrow, admitted he enjoyed tormenting the weak. He revealed his plan was to corner Turi slowly and methodically, all because of the attention the rookie had received from all those women. With a sinister smirk, Arrow mused that with a nice sacrifice so close to Chalkblade, the Snake King, leader of Snake Den, might finally have his way with them. A young woman introduces herself as Elise, daughter of the House of Boris, explaining that she is on the run and must hide her identity. She frets over what will become of her. Aisha immediately reassures her, vowing that they will get her to her destination or die trying. Ween solemnly adds her own promise to keep the lady safe. Visibly moved, Elise thanks Aisha, expressing her confidence that she will make it to the next town with her by her side. Aisha, touched, remarks on how much the lady has grown. Turi watches the exchange with a look of confusion, as Ween quietly affirms Aisha's sentiment. The emotional display is cut short when Aisha turns to Turi, chiding him for being so bad at playing along. She declares that they should drop the act and get moving. In response, Elise clarifies the entire situation. This is the setting for their promotion exam, the objective of which is to escort a VIP from Boris to Toki. She explains that while she is playing the role of the VIP, she is also his examiner and expects him to take the task seriously. Aisha laughs, admitting they were joking around, but that the mission itself is very real. Turi formally accepts that he will be in her care for the next 4 days. Aisha encourages him to relax, assuring him that the party will act as his support and follow his orders on the road. He promises to do his best, though he internally questions whether she truly trusts him or is merely testing his capabilities. Stepping into the commander role, he begins to outline the group's formation. 3 bodyguards will surround the noble lady on horseback. He assigns himself, Lilitan, and Marine to this duty, with Aisha serving as the overall commander and primary fighter. He continues assigning roles. Saran will scout ahead, while Ween will bring up the rear and provide support for the entire group. Aisha will also serve as the coachman and an emergency bodyguard. Ween is thrilled with the responsibility, realizing her master's fate rests in her hands. Saran, who is apparently an androphobe, silently acknowledges her orders by writing on a small board. Using a map, he then explains his choice of route. The shortest path through the mountains is too dangerous, filled with strong monsters and a risk of landslides from recent heavy rains. To prioritize the VIP's safety, they will take the longer western route across the plains, where they will only have to contend with more manageable robbers and monsters. Aisha agrees that it is not a bad plan. Despite her approval, Turi feels as though she is judging him. He also notices Elise watching him with an intense, evaluative gaze, a look that reminds him of his former life at a corporate office. With the preparations complete, the party sets off. Marine immediately asks Turi for snacks, but he tells her they can have some later. Ween flies into a small rage, questioning how Marine could dare refuse her master's kindness. As their journey begins, Turi is filled with worry. He leads the party alongside the carriage, maintaining a professional demeanor. Elise turns to him, remarking that he's amazing. When he asks why, she explains that the way he presented orders and information felt very skillful. He simply brushes it off, saying it wasn't anything special. She insists, however, stating she never would have guessed he was a rookie who had been working solo until now. With a confident smile, she assures him he'll pass the exam with no problem. He offers a quiet thanks, reflecting internally that the communication skills he polished at his old company have come in handy. Her expression then shifts to one of concern. She suddenly apologizes, admitting that something is her fault. Turi, caught off guard by the abrupt change in topic, asks what she means. She explains that she is aware of the bad rumors circulating about him and worries that they started because she's been spending so much time in his company. He immediately dismisses her concern, insisting it's not her fault at all and that he's actually the one worried about ruining her reputation. As their conversation continues, Ween suddenly appears between them with a furious expression. She warns Elise not to sweet-talk her master, declaring that she is keeping watch with her mana sense. While Elise is taken aback, Turi is simply confused by the term. Ween, flustered, clarifies that she wasn't accusing Elise of anything and tells her to get back to her post. His confusion prompts Ween to ask in disbelief if he doesn't even know what mana sense is. He apologizes, admitting his knowledge of magic is limited. Elise explains that it's a simple search conducted with mana and suggests that Turi could likely learn it too, which surprises him. From a distance, Lilitan remarks on how fun Ween's life must be, while Aisha mutters darn it in frustration. The warrior's irritation boils over. Aisha strides forward, grabs Ween by her robes, and lifts her into the air, telling the young mage to return to her post. She accuses Ween of trying to give Turi and Elise an opportunity to grow closer, prompting a shouted curse from Ween directed at Lilitan. After dispatching Ween, she turns to Turi with a predatory grin. She compliments his apparent strength, and when he thanks her, she insists her gut feeling is always right. Leaning in close, she propositions him, asking him to spend the night with her, just the two of them. Turi is left speechless and blushing, completely shocked by her forwardness as Lilitan calls out in the background. Before he can formulate a response, Elise steps in, her expression icy. She tells Aisha not to steal Turi, claiming he already has plans with her to learn magic. She calls Aisha's proposition rude, though Turi weakly clarifies he hadn't actually promised anything. Ignoring him, Elise turns away, clearly upset. He asks what made her so angry, but she denies being angry at all, leaving him utterly bewildered as their journey continues. As the adventurer party's expedition continues, they travel along a wide, open road. Aisha, noting their good pace, suggests they stop to have lunch. Turi readily agrees, taking the opportunity to ask her a question that has been on his mind. He asks why they haven't encountered any monsters, then inquires if she knows about a technique called cloaking. Aisha confirms that she does, remarking that she had suspected he wouldn't know about it, given that he is a rookie. She explains that cloaking is a method of wrapping one's own mana around their body or weapon to enhance their strength. It's a somewhat tricky technique, she adds, but anyone with mana can learn to do it. The power of the effect is directly dependent on the strength of the user's mana. Turi understands now. The explanation triggers a memory of the strange sensation he felt during his confrontation with another adventurer. He realizes that what he witnessed back then must have been the cloaking technique. Seeing his interest, Aisha offers to teach him the technique since they have some time. Turi is taken aback by her unexpected friendliness, but enthusiastically accepts her offer, declaring that he would love to learn. He agrees to set aside time after their lunch. As they walk to a clear area, Aisha hands him a simple wooden sword. Turi takes it, a look of confusion on his face as he wonders what it's for. She clarifies that before she teaches him cloaking, she will spar with him to get a rough idea of who he is. For swordsmen, she explains, feeling the sensation of another's techniques is a far better way to get to know them than simple conversation. Turi is impressed, realizing this is the way of the sword. The rest of the party watches as Aisha remarks that this looks fun. Marine cautions her to keep the spar light so it won't impact the exam, but Ween shouts for Aisha to beat the beast to a pulp. Turi overhears, dismayed that they're making such a big deal out of it. Meanwhile, Saran keeps watch over their surroundings. Marine turns to Turi and asks if he is ready. He nervously confirms, understanding that this is a test to establish his capabilities. Marine then offers to give the start signal for the match between him and Aisha. Turi steels himself for the fight. He acknowledges that the difference in skill between them is huge, but sees this as a good opportunity. Having trained every day, he resolves to test his progress by trying to land at least one single hit on her. He barely has time to react. Aisha declares the start of the match and, in the same breath, lunges forward with blinding speed. His eyes widen in shock as he braces for the impossibly fast attack. His mind races, a single thought crystallizing in his panic. He had let his guard down, even knowing she held a sword. But the blow never lands. Aisha stands a short distance away, reminding him of her words back at the guild, that she doesn't trust him. With a calm but firm tone, she instructs him to fix his stance. He stammers, overwhelmed by the sheer difference in their abilities, realizing it's impossible for him to land a single hit. Aisha, however, simply tells him not to worry, reassuring him that they have plenty of potions should he get hurt. Meanwhile, the rest of the party observes with disappointment. Lily-tan questions her own judgment, noting that Turi's spirit already seems broken. Marine expresses her dismay that he can't even hold his sword properly, while Ween bluntly concludes that he must be a weakling. Their words reach him, but he internally rejects their opinions. He is acutely aware that he has no innate talent beyond the gifts he received, and the thought of suffering for no reason tempts him to simply surrender. As he wavers, Saran acknowledges the truth. Aisha is incredibly strong, and Turi cannot win. Yet, she hesitates, sensing something more. Marine, however, cuts in with conviction, stating plainly that Turi is not weak. Her voice rings out, shouting for Turi to do his best. Her encouragement strikes a chord within him. He knows that simply trying his hardest might not change the outcome, but he realizes that running away without giving it his all would be pathetic. With renewed determination, he unleashes a surge of mana, startling Aisha with its intensity. He charges forward, his blade meeting hers in a powerful clash of steel. The impact shatters the ground beneath them. The exchange is over in an instant. Turi is brought to his knees, the blade of his sword shattered and falling to the ground. Aisha stands over him, victorious. His party members watch the outcome with a mix of shock and awe. Ween, clenching her teeth, muttered about the impertinent beast, while Marine and Lily-tan were openly amazed, exclaiming that it was incredible he had actually managed to land a hit on Aisha. Standing before a stunned Aisha, he himself was just as confused, suddenly realizing he had used the cloaking skill. He wondered if that was why he had felt so strong. When Aisha demanded to know how he'd used it without realizing, he could only explain that he didn't know, guessing he was just in the zone. He then broke into a wide, earnest smile, clarifying that his only motivation was that Marine had told him to do his best. Aisha was taken aback by such a simple reason. As a reward, Marine offered him a bomb, which he immediately recognized as a notoriously expensive monster sweet. His earnestness seemed to have an unexpected effect on Aisha, who stood blushing, her guard completely down. The others noticed something amiss. Ween and Saran pointed out that the latch on Aisha's chest plate had come undone. Suddenly aware of her situation, she became intensely flustered, trying to cover herself. Turi, averting his gaze, declared the spar over since his practice sword was broken. He calmly told her to get some clothes first, which only seemed to incense her further. Marine cheekily asked if this unexpected result was also part of his talent, teasing him about his preferences. As Turi sputtered in denial, Aisha, regaining some composure, stated not to worry, she had another sword. His eyes widened in terror, believing she was now bringing out her real weapon to kill him. As dusk begins to settle, the party decides to make camp for the night. Turi reflects that he may have finally grown accustomed to traveling with this group. Aisha cheerfully suggests they have a party to mark their first day, but Turi, flustered, insists they must remain vigilant to guard Elise. His serious response is met with teasing. Aisha declares that he must be in love with Elise, while Marine expresses disbelief that Turi find her lovely. Mortified, Turi shouts back that they were the ones who invented this entire scenario in the first place. He then turns his attention to Aisha, questioning if she's truly going along with the exam premise. With a sly, narrowed gaze, she accuses him of taking advantage of the situation to look at someone's chest, implying he has ulterior motives. Turi realizes with horror that she still holds a massive grudge from their previous encounter, frantically insisting it was an accident. Later, while tending a crackling campfire alone, he mulls over Aisha's anger. He concedes that accidentally stripping someone isn't easily forgiven, but sees a potential benefit, Her hostility could help maintain the distance he needs to act as the mysterious dimensional mage. Just as he hopes things might work out, a piercing scream from Aisha shatters the quiet. Fearing a monster attack, he dashes toward the sound. He bursts through the trees to find the party's women bathing in a river. He calls out, asking if they are all right, only to be met with the stunned faces of Elise, Marine, and another woman identical to Elise. He stammers, trying to explain that he thought they were in danger. Elise, however, looks at him with a knowing smile, saying she was worried about him and asking if he came to take a look. Turi is left speechless by her teasing. Suddenly, a sharp slap cracks across his face. Aisha, blushing furiously, stands before him and yells that he is a pervert. He recoils from the blow, offering a weak apology. Marine, now dressed, casually explains that it was her fault for groping Aisha, which caused the scream. Aisha, flustered, retorts that Marine shouldn't shift the blame and that she had told her not to do it. Their argument continues as Marine declares that leaving such perfect breasts untouched would be a crime. Aisha shouts back that the touching itself is the crime. Unfazed, Marine turns to Turi and asks if he would like to try fondling her breasts, leaving him completely bewildered. As Marine continues to pester Aisha, their chaotic conversation is cut short by a sharp thud. An arrow strikes a nearby post. Turi instantly recognizes it as a message arrow and, with a jolt, realizes that Saran is not with them. He stares at the note tied to the arrow, bewildered. It's from Saran, stating simply that she'll bathe later by herself and not to worry. He wonders aloud what kind of nonsensical reason would justify using an arrow message for this. As he stands there perplexed, Aisha calls out his name. Her tone is firm as she summons him for a private conversation after his mana sense training with Marine is finished, making it clear that refusal is not an option. Later that night, he sits alone by the campfire, having waited for her. He grimly muses to himself that with a summons like that, he must only have a few hours left to live. When she finally joins him, he looks up and is momentarily struck by her beauty. He immediately scolds himself, thinking he shouldn't be having such thoughts in this tense situation. Noticing his stare, Aisha asks if there's something on her face, causing him to stammer that it's nothing. She then clasps her hands and begins to clear the air, starting with an apology for calling him old rookie. She continues, also expressing remorse for having acted so meanly and saying harsh things to him. The sudden change in her demeanor leaves him utterly surprised. He can only stammer her name in response. Aisha admits she regrets her actions, clarifying that she never actually thought he was a bad person. She explains that she has a good sense of character, and more importantly, she's noticed how happy Marine looks whenever the two of them are talking. Her expression grows serious as she explains her duty as the leader of Chalkblade. It wasn't good enough that he was getting close to Marine. She had to investigate him to ensure her comrades were safe. Turi finally understands her reasoning, realizing this fierce dedication is why her party members adore her so much. He tells her not to worry about it. A small, genuine smile appears on Aisha's face as she thanks him for the compliment. She then adds another apology, this time for slapping him at the guild, admitting that she panicked. She elaborates, explaining that her name carries significant weight, and had she treated him kindly from the start, he might have been ostracized by others. In a way, her actions were meant to protect him. She then raises a finger, warning him not to get the wrong idea about her motives. Before he can ask what she means, her face breaks into a wide, menacingly sweet smile. With a dark cheerfulness, she declares that she will never forgive him for peeking at her naked body. Flustered, Turi insists it was an accident and that he's truly sorry, but his pleas seem to have no effect. Later, with the air clear between them, the camp settles into a peaceful quiet. Inside their tent, Aisha, Marine, Lilytan, and Wien are all fast asleep. In her dreams, Wien softly murmurs for her master. While the others slept, Turi sat by the campfire during his night watch. With plenty of time left before his shift was over, he decided it was the perfect opportunity to begin some testing. He rose to his feet, recalling the mana sensing technique Marine had taught him. He felt confident that if he could apply that principle, his own dimensional magic should work just as well, if not better. Focusing his will, the world around him seemed to dissolve into lines of energy as he invoked the spell. Detection. The result was immediate and astounding. He realized he had succeeded, marveling at how detailed the sensory input was. He could perceive everything. Small animals hiding in the bushes, the sleeping forms of his companions, and even a squirrel perched on a distant branch. He understood, then, that his dimensional spell, Detection, was a far superior version of mana sensing. While the latter could only sense mana, his ability allowed him to grasp the physical reality of everything around him, making it an incredibly powerful searching spell. A sudden, horrifying realization washed over him. He had just seen the members of Chalkblade while they were sleeping. Clutching his head in shame, he panicked, thinking that his actions made him no better than a peeping Tom. He vowed to be much more careful with how he used this power in the future. His internal crisis was cut short as his Detection spell picked up movement. 2 kobolds were approaching the camp. He immediately pushed his embarrassment aside, recognizing that dealing with the imminent threat was the top priority. Facing the creatures, he drew his blade with a grim smile. He knew these particular kobolds had nothing to do with his past, but he still harbored a grudge against their kind and wanted some revenge. Deciding they would make perfect practice dummies for a new ability, he activated another spell. Cloaking power surged through him. He lunged, and his blade cut through the first kobold's bones with shocking ease, despite him not putting much strength into the attack. He was amazed at the power of cloaking. His focus then shifted to the remaining monsters. They were splitting up for a pincer attack, a strategy far more advanced than what he expected from mere beasts. Despite their tactics, he was unimpressed, considering it foolish for them to try and overwhelm him in his current state. As he moved to engage the next one, however, the kobold froze, its eyes wide with terror, and then turned and fled. The sudden retreat caught Turi completely by surprise. He realizes that with his cloaking spell, he can enhance his body to match the kobold's speed. With a burst of movement, he easily catches one, reflecting on how much of a struggle they were the last time he fought them. Now it feels effortless. He pauses, a confident smirk spreading across his face as he admires his own coolness. His satisfaction is short-lived, however, as he laments having no one around to witness his prowess. Just then, he notices more kobolds emerging from the trees, wondering if there were more of them than he initially thought. His confidence shatters as a massive horde of kobolds swarms out from the forest, far more than were present during the nest investigation. He stares in disbelief, realizing that even with his cloaking ability, fighting this many is impossible. As he frantically weighs his options, considering the risky use of his sever spell so close to his party, a calm voice cuts through his panic. It asks what the matter is, and why he hadn't invited them to join. He looks up, stunned to see his entire party, Chalkblade, awake and ready for battle. Aisha declares that if he's having a party, they'll join in. Lily Tan advises him to save the conversation for later, pointing out the horde of monsters they need to deal with. With a grin, Aisha leaps forward, shouting for the party to get started. In a single, devastating arc of her greatsword, she carves through a line of kobolds. She remarks that it has been a while since all the members of Chalkblade fought together. Her enthusiasm is met with a dry remark from Saran, who cuts down another kobold. The beast hunter tells Aisha to stop calling it a party when there isn't any booze. She then unleashes a powerful spell, a giant water bomb, that engulfs and obliterates a cluster of enemies. Responding to Saran's comment, Ween notes that while there's no alcohol, she can make some water if that's acceptable. Marine chimes in that she'd love a glass. Ween then unleashes her own magic, a fire cannon that incinerates another large group of kobolds in a fiery explosion. As the last of the monsters are annihilated, Marine lets out a yawn, remarking that the excitement is just what she needed to wake up. Lily Tan dryly comments that she doubts the chaos will help with sleepiness. Aisha observes that everyone got too fired up, leaving her with nothing to do. The battlefield falls silent. The party is over. Turi stares at the scene of utter devastation, shocked at how his companions dealt with so many enemies in a mere second. He had no doubt they would win, but this level of power is incredible. He finally understands. This is the strength of Chalkblade, the strongest party in Boris. He stammers his thanks for the help. Aisha, with a warm smile, accepts but points out that she didn't have to do anything. Her expression then turns serious as she asks why he didn't call for them immediately. She continues, acknowledging that his new cloaking ability might make him feel stronger, but she sternly warns him that fighting so many foes alone is recklessness, not courage. Her tone softens as she adds that the most important thing is that he wasn't injured. Looking down, he apologizes sincerely and promises it won't happen again. Her expression softens completely, and with a gentle smile, she reminds him that they are friends now, urging him to rely on them more. Visibly touched by her words, Turi murmurs her name in surprise. After a moment, he gathers himself and asks if he can say something. He explains that while using mana sensing earlier, he grasped a mana signature in the shape of a person, realizing it was a detection spell. Aisha listens intently, though she can't sense anything herself. He adds that the presence vanished the moment he perceived it. She considers this, concluding it was most likely a passing adventurer or merchant. Still, she concedes it could have been a bandit and instructs him to report anything suspicious he finds in the future, no matter how minor. He readily agrees, but a wave of guilt washes over him as he recalls that his detection spell had inadvertently allowed him to peek at the women. As if reading his mind, Aisha's expression turns playful, and she wags a finger, warning him not to barge into their tent to peek. Later that night, under a crescent moon, Turi is completely flustered by her insinuation. He stammers that it's not like that at all, but Aisha, seeing his guilty reaction, demands to know if he was actually planning on it, pressing him for an answer. Meanwhile, far from their camp, a lone, cloaked figure stands atop a rocky peak. The observer notes with a faint smile that Turi's bond with Chalkblade appears stronger than anticipated and resolves that this development must be reported to Ikan-san. Deep inside the forest of no return, a party of adventurers lies defeated amidst the carnage of a monster attack. The creatures, vicious and winged, are suddenly and violently dispatched, severed in an instant. The surviving adventurers, members of the Black Armored Flower, stare in disbelief at the slaughter, wondering what happened. One of them, Turi, advises the others to flee, telling them to leave this to him. As they look on, a lone, hooded hero descends from above. The adventurers, save in a flash, are stunned. They question who the masked figure could be, speculating if he is the one who took down the dragon, or perhaps the same person who saved the party, known as Chalkblade. The mysterious mage confirms their suspicions with a confident smile, acknowledging that the rumors are true. He tells the adventurers they can discuss it later and urges them to hurry and get to safety. As they flee, he reflects internally that this is the third time he has saved someone this week, realizing that rumors about him must be spreading, even if people don't understand the full truth. His thoughts then shift to his new disguise. He insists to himself that the mask isn't weird. In fact, it's a super cool, heroic-looking mask he crafted himself using dimensional magic. A flicker of doubt crosses his mind, wondering if it's actually lame, but he quickly pushes the thought aside, reaffirming its stylishness before turning his attention to the rest of the monsters. Sometime later, Turi arrives at the magnificent estate of House Garden, home to the party Chalkblade. A maid greets him at the entrance, introducing herself as Lewin, the personal attendant of Lady Aisha Garden. Turi is stunned to learn that Aisha comes from a noble family, complete with a mansion and servants. Lewin then offers to guide him to her lady. She leads him to a room where Aisha is waiting. Aisha greets him warmly, saying it's been a long time, and dismisses Lewin for the moment. She invites Turi to sit, noting that it's been about 2 weeks since they last saw each other during the promotion exam. As he takes a seat, she offers a slightly late congratulations on his promotion. Turi humbly deflects the praise, stating he only passed because she and her party helped him. Aisha smiles at his modesty, remarking that she suspects it's only a matter of time before he's promoted to 4 stars. He continues to downplay his own skill, saying he prefers not to stand out any more than he already does. Aisha chuckles, finding his casual manner amusing. She reminds him that he was being awfully casual, recalling how Lily Dan had forced him to change his formal speech during the exam, insisting they were all friends now and should speak informally. Her comment makes him nervous. Thinking he has overstepped, Turi quickly offers to revert to his more formal way of speaking. At his suggestion, Aisha's smile falters, and she seems disappointed. However, her expression softens into a gentle smile as she tells him she quite likes the way he speaks now. Turi is taken aback by the compliment, left to wonder how he has managed to become so friendly with his former archenemies. He asks if this was the reason for her invitation. Aisha confirms, but adds that unfortunately, there are some, like those at the guild, who do not look kindly upon their association. She elaborates, revealing that some adventurers are apparently planning to harm him. The cause, she believes, is the negative rumors circulating about them. Turi is stunned, questioning if she is being serious. Aisha explains that she learned this while investigating him, recalling an image of Saran tailing him through the streets. With a playful wink, she boasts about her potential talent as a spy and announces that they have also identified the main culprit. Startled, Turi demands to know who it is. The man responsible is Ekins, the Snake King, a 5-star adventurer who leads a group of thugs. He is described as a cruel and dangerous individual, skilled enough to reach 6-star rank if he had sufficient mana, and is surrounded by nasty rumors. Still seated across from her, Turi questions why the guild doesn't take action against such a man. Aisha clarifies that the guild is too busy to act on hearsay alone, and that Ekins has reportedly crushed multiple adventurers in the past. He processes the information, realizing a troublesome person has now targeted him. Aisha adds that even if they had evidence, it would still be difficult to do anything about a 5-star adventurer. As their meeting concludes, she makes one last request. If he happens to hear anything about the mysterious mage who took down the dragon, he must inform them immediately. Turi, the very mage in question, is visibly startled but clenches his fist and agrees. Leaving the estate, he reflects on his strange relationship with Aisha, annoyed that she never gives him a chance to repay his debt and that her anger is so easily provoked. As he arrives at his inn and announces his return, a stranger with spiky hair cheerfully welcomes him back, calling him Oniasen, much to Turi's confusion. The man, carrying a small child on his shoulders, introduces himself as Alon, a 5-star adventurer from the next town who will be staying at the inn. Turi introduces himself in turn. The innkeeper, Goliath, then calls for Turi's attention. Beaming with pride, Goliath declares that Alon should get a good look, as Turi is his second customer of the entire year. Turi bursts out laughing, amazed that the inn has managed to stay in business at all. He offers some food to his new acquaintance, but a clatter on the floor draws his attention. With a jolt of panic, he realizes the white mask from his dimensional storage has slipped out and fallen. Before he can react, Alon picks up the fallen object. He holds it out, noting that Turi dropped it. Flustered, Turi tries to play it off, claiming he just stumbled upon it during a quest the other day. His attempt at nonchalance fails completely. Alon's eyes light up with excitement as he holds the mask, declaring it a super cool, heroic-looking item. He seems to genuinely understand its greatness, much to Turi's surprise, while the small child looks on curiously. The child, however, is less than impressed. With a wide, dismissive grin, he loudly proclaims the mask to be lame, shattering the moment and leaving both Turi and Alon momentarily stunned. As they walk away from the inn, Turi concedes that the mask's appeal might be lost on children. Trying to move past the awkward moment, He asks Alon why he came to the town of Boris. Alon answers cheerfully that he came to earn money. He explains that the nearby forest of no return is a good place for that, and asks if Turi would be kind enough to show him around. He admits that the thought of exploring the forest for the first time makes him anxious. With a slightly nervous smile, he promises that Turi will, of course, receive a part of any reward they earn. Turi hesitates, feeling the need to be honest. He warns Alon that people mock him with the nickname Old Rookie and asks if he's truly sure about teaming up with someone with such a reputation. Alon seems unfazed, noting that it sounds like a mean nickname, but that it doesn't matter to him. He elaborates, explaining that based on what Lip and Goliath have told him, he believes Turi is the most trustworthy person around. He formally asks Turi to team up with him. Turi is stunned. The simple act of being accepted by a fellow adventurer of the same rank, without mockery, moves him deeply. He happily agrees, setting aside his plan to take the next day off to instead go with Alon the day after tomorrow. Alon thanks him profusely as they finalize their plans. The innkeeper, Goliath, bursts in with a look of alarm, shouting for Turi. He urgently announces that it's terrible. The witch is here. Caught mid-change, Turi yells at him for not knocking. Goliath, unfazed, insists the witch is here to see him. Turi realizes he must be referring to Marine and wonders what she could want. Now fully dressed, he apologizes for the wait. Goliath, still in awe, asks how he knows such an incredible person. Turi reflects internally that this is the standard reaction people have to the famous party, Chalkblade. He steps outside to find a woman he doesn't recognize, dressed in a modest outfit with a beret and glasses. When he asks who she is, she confirms that she is Marine. Turi is stunned, admitting no one in town would recognize her. He stammers that she looks good, just different, and she asks if the outfit, put together by her party members, looks weird. Her expression softens with relief at his reassurance. She then invites him to go shopping with her for an upcoming trip to the capital. Still processing her completely different demeanor, Turi hesitantly agrees. As they walk through the town, they attract the attention of other adventurers. The men gossip about the lousy old rookie being with such a beautiful woman, pitying her and assuming he must have tricked her. Turi overhears them, his expression hardening slightly. She, however, tells him to ignore the background noise, expressing her gladness that no one has recognized her. This prompts Turi to ask again why she's dressed in such a way. Her reason is simple, because he got into trouble for associating with her, the witch. Turi recalls her being distant since the exam, but insists she doesn't have to worry about causing him trouble. Marine quietly disagrees, stating that she does. His confusion is cut short when she turns to him and declares, "You're special to me." Before he can respond, she clarifies that he is her first ever friend outside of Chalkblade that she wants to hang out with. She explains that she disguised herself so she wouldn't cause him any more trouble. As she speaks, her hand gently takes hold of his sleeve, leaving Turi utterly speechless. He stares, taken aback by her question. Marine, looking slightly uncertain behind her glasses, asks if she can still spend time with him. Confused by her sudden insecurity, he can only ask what she's talking about. His confusion gives way to emphatic reassurance. He declares loudly that of course she can, reminding her that she is special to him as well. Visibly surprised by his fervor, Marine simply agrees. As they continue on their way, he tells her that she doesn't need to wear the disguise next time. When she asks if he dislikes it, he quickly clarifies that he does like it, but insists she doesn't need to go to such lengths just for his sake. Elsewhere, in a grim, undisclosed location, a young woman is held captive. With her hands bound above her head and a thick gag silencing her muffled cries, she endures torment as an unseen captor pours a substance onto her bare foot. The architect of this suffering, Ekins, relaxes with a drink as he receives a report from a hooded subordinate. The subordinate confirms that the adventurer they're targeting has learned cloaking and is now at the level of a C-rank adventurer, but only in a fair fight. When his associate inquires about a particular magic tool, Ekins tells them to leave the matter to him. He then presents the device, a lantern containing a pulsating crystal. With a sinister grin, he identifies it as an illegal stampede lantern, declaring it to be the very key to their ascension to the status of heroes. The hooded figure expresses alarm, questioning if Ekins truly intends to cause a monster stampede deliberately. Ekins confirms the plan without hesitation, explaining that he will use the lantern's light to draw a massive horde of monsters. His subordinate voices concern for the town's safety, but Ekins lays out the next phase of his scheme. Once the monsters are gathered, his forces will defeat them, positioning themselves as the saviors of the town. This, he believes, will elevate the snake nest to prominence. He adds that the timing is perfect, as Chalkblade is away in the capital. Sensing the lingering doubt, Ekins' expression darkens into a threatening glare. He leans forward, his voice low and dangerous, asking if his subordinate believes he would fail, or if they dare to have a problem with his plan. The hooded figure flinches, stammering an immediate apology. His thoughts then turn to the final piece of his plot. Acknowledging that using the lantern is a major crime, he resolves to frame the old rookie for the act. He muses that by carefully managing the mana output, the resulting stampede will appear to be nothing more than a large gathering of weak monsters. With the plan settled, he takes a drink to calm his nerves. He considers the timing of his plan, a cruel smile spreading across his face. By then, he muses his target will already be dead. Meanwhile, under the light of a full moon, Turi sits alone in his room, contemplating the information he has. He speaks the names aloud. The Snake Nest and Eakins, the Snake King. He suspects they are planning something, reasoning that they will most likely make their move while Chalkblade is away in the capital. His expression shifts from contemplation to a confident grin. He realizes this looming trouble is not a threat, but a perfect opportunity. It is a chance, he thinks, for the strongest mage to make a fantastic appearance. This conflict is precisely what he has been waiting for. While walking through the city streets with a bespectacled companion, Turi is accosted by a man with a bandaged head. The man recognizes Turi as the old rookie and declares his intent to rob them, noting that this is the third attack from the Snake Nest in 3 days, occurring just after the party Chalkblade left town. He and his associate block the path, telling Turi's companion to leave as their business is only with him. Turi calmly states they are just on their way to the guild to take a quest. His companion, exasperated, asks Turi why unsavory characters are always after him, recognizing the name Snake Nest as a famous group. Turi simply replies that he tends to stand out, so such encounters can't be helped. Stepping forward, the adventurer draws his sword and tells Turi to leave the matter to him. A surge of mana envelopes him, a technique Turi identifies as cloaking. Announcing that he may only be a 3-star adventurer, he crouches, ready to spring into action. In an instant, he strikes, sending the thug from the Snake Nest crashing face first into the ground, utterly defeated. With a trickle of blood on his chin, the adventurer turns to Turi with a triumphant grin, explaining that he made their opponent drop his guard according to plan. He then casually asks Turi to wipe the blood from his face. Turi sighs, a wry smile on his face. Resigned to the situation, he decides there's no way around it and activates his own cloaking ability, ready to handle the rest. A short while later, the two arrive at the Adventurers Guild. Elise greets Turi warmly before asking about his companion. The man introduces himself with a broad smile as Alon, a 3-star adventurer from the next town over, here to earn some money. He explains that he's taking a quest, and Turi was kind enough to help him out, which Elise notes is just what Turi had told her. Her eyes welling with tears, Elise becomes emotional, exclaiming that Turi has finally made a friend. Turi, flustered, tells her not to get so worked up, asking if she's his mother. Alon confidently tells Elise she can count on him, prompting Turi to remind him who got humbled in the earlier scuffle. Elise then asks Alon to look after Turi, calling him a good but misunderstood person. As Turi protests being treated like a child, Elise apologizes for her nonsense and asks about the trouble they ran into. He replies to her question, confirming that the trouble was with the Snake Nest again. He adds that this marks the 3rd time they have targeted him in just 3 days. He then asks if the guild could help him, but Elise looks away apologetically, explaining there's nothing she can do. Turi reassures her that it's not her fault, understanding that the guild would likely classify the harassment as a personal issue. Alon overhears and chimes in, suggesting that while Turi shouldn't ignore them, such low-level thugs can be found anywhere. He reasons that if they're just small fry, there's not much to worry about. Turi's expression turns serious. He states that this is precisely what bothers him, prompting a confused "huh" from Alon as Turi asks what he means by that. He mulls over the situation, the image of the gang leader, Eakins, in his mind. He reasons that Eakins must know he can't be easily crushed. If the goal were simply to teach him a lesson, it would make far more sense to ambush him with a large group, not send a few thugs in broad daylight. Alon listens intently, stroking his chin in thought. He questions if this means their opponent is underestimating Turi, even after several of his men have already failed in their attempts. Turi can only offer a non-committal response. He continues his analysis, explaining that he doesn't possess a lot of money, nor is he powerful enough to pose a significant threat to their organization. Raising a finger, he concludes by asking what the gang could possibly gain from defeating him. As he finishes, Elise joins them, agreeing that the situation makes no sense. Alon, however, has a sudden, bizarre realization, suggesting they might be area kings. Before Turi can react, Alon erupts, shouting that the gang members are at that middle school age where they've taken a romantic interest in Turi. While Elise winks knowingly, Alon quickly backpedals, insisting that's not what he meant. Elise smiles warmly, telling Turi it just looks like he's enjoying himself, a notion he immediately denies. Alon interjects, telling them to stop fighting and scolding Turi for acting like his mother. Elise brings them back to the matter at hand, suggesting they simply remain vigilant since the gang's motives are unknown. She calls out for them to wait, adding that she'll be in their care for the day. With that settled, Turi and Alon head out. The following day, the two adventurers prepare to depart again, with Alon confirming if Turi has remembered everything for their task. The scene shifts inside the inn, where the proprietor, Goliath, presents them with 2 packed lunches. He explains that the young girl, Lip, wanted to make lunch for both of them. Lip proudly holds up the packages, exclaiming that she even put meat in them. Turi is surprised when Lip addresses him as Sensei. Alon clarifies that he has been teaching her lately. With a bright smile, Lip wishes Oni-chan, Alon, and Sensei Turi good luck on their journey. Turi, touched, thanks her warmly. As they prepare to depart, Goliath makes a request for them to gather some Hytalica flowers. Alon describes them as large, yellow flowers that bloom during the day, noting that while not rare, they don't grow within the city. When Turi asks why he needs them, Goliath explains that Lip wants them. Lip cheerfully clarifies that she wants to put the flowers on her mother's grave, as they were her favorite. Turi is visibly taken aback by this revelation. Goliath apologizes for the request, explaining that he would go himself but cannot leave Lip alone, nor can he take her into the dangerous forest. Turi quietly accepts, understanding the weight of the task. He gently pats the young girl's head, confirming their promise. Lip looks up, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and disbelief, asking if they truly mean it. His companion, Alon, smiles warmly and assures her that he will pick some very pretty flowers for her. Turi enthusiastically agrees, telling Lip-chan she can count on them. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Lip's eyes well up with tears as she shouts her thanks to both her Oni-san and Sensei, declaring that she loves them both. The sudden, intense declaration sends both Turi and Alon reeling back in flustered shock. Before they can fully recover, Goliath bellows at Turi that he is not giving his daughter away. Seizing the moment, Alon turns to the innkeeper and says he has a favor to ask in return. He asks what Alon wants. Alon explains that a friend might visit while he's gone and will need to retrieve some documents from his room. He asks if Goliath could hand them over. The innkeeper agrees with a smile, saying it's no trouble at all. The innkeeper then offers to leave a message for Alon's friend. Alon pauses, considering the suggestion. He decides against it, instead telling Lip that she can deliver the message. He asks her to simply tell his friend that he'll be counting on him. The young girl eagerly accepts the responsibility. His friend's demeanor troubles Turi, who asks if Alon's fondness for children is normal or something weird. Alon deflects, musing that kids are the best and that his love for them is truly something special. Unsettled, Turi simply warns him not to break any laws. The exchange leaves Goliath equally unsettled. He pulls Turi aside and yells that he isn't giving his daughter to Alon either, even if he is Turi's sensei. He sternly advises Turi to be careful of that man. Later, in a nearby forest, a wolf-like monster lunges, only to be swiftly cut down. Standing over the slain creatures, Alon calmly cleans his glasses and states that they have now collected all the swarm claws required for the quest. He calls out to Turi, admitting that after seeing him yesterday, he'd thought him useless in combat. Now, however, he concedes that Turi is unexpectedly good, proving one shouldn't judge people too quickly. Turi turns, asking what he means. In a sudden, flustered outburst, he retracts his praise, excitedly demanding to know if Turi saw how he defeated all the monsters entirely on his own. Their conversation halts as they arrive at their destination, a field of large, sunflower-like blossoms. These are the Hytalica flowers. They found the patch of flowers with surprising ease. As Turi begins to gather them, Alon remarks that Lip-chan should be happy with so many. He smiles fondly, adding that the girl always wears her emotions on her sleeve, just as she does when he's teaching her. He agrees with a smile, recalling how Lip scowls with worry over a difficult problem, only to jump with pure joy the moment she finds a correct answer. Turi concludes that she is a true joy to behold. His fond recollection prompts a question. Turi asks Alon when he met Lip, noting that they seem quite close. A flustered Alon, blushing slightly, stammers that it was about 3 months ago and admits she is very cute. Turi's expression turns more serious as he observes that Lip looks much healthier now, remembering she was malnourished when he first met her. Alon explains that the inn was once famous because of her mother's cooking. He adds that it must be difficult for Goliath to manage everything alone and that the inn seems to be in trouble. He continues, explaining that regardless of her mood, Lip always gives her all to her studies. She constantly mumbles to herself about needing to hurry up and become useful to her dad. Hearing this, Turi gazes at one of the flowers he holds, his expression softening. He quietly affirms that she is, indeed, a very good kid. He turns to Alon, a shared understanding passing between them. Alon holds up a flower, suggesting they gather them to bring her even a small amount of happiness. Turi agrees with renewed determination, declaring that he's right. He and Alon stood in the forest clearing when a heavy boot suddenly stomped into view directly in front of them, halting their conversation. The owner of the boot revealed himself to be the arrogant adventurer from their previous encounter. With a smirk, he sarcastically thanked Turi for their last meeting. Turi, suspicious, questioned why the man had come alone. Alon, however, commented that it seemed their adversary had learned his lesson. In response to Alon's remark, several more armed figures emerged from the surrounding woods, their weapons drawn. The two adventurers were suddenly surrounded in an ambush. Turi gritted his teeth, furious with himself for letting his guard down. He realized with a jolt that this had been their goal from the start and cursed his failure to use his detection magic. The lone man had been nothing but bait. Turning to his companion, he apologized for getting him caught up in the mess and asked if he would lend a hand. Alon, drawing his own sword without hesitation, confirmed he was ready anytime. Their antagonist scoffed, clearly underestimating them. Alon, however, declared with surprising optimism that since he and Turi were both 3-star adventurers, their combined 6 stars meant they couldn't possibly lose. Turi found the logic questionable, but said nothing. The situation took a dire turn as a large man stepped forward, holding a captive lip with her hands bound. Turi cried out her name in shock. The captor warned them not to do anything rash for the girl's sake, enraging Turi further. Alon's friendly demeanor vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, menacing glare. Through gritted teeth, he delivered a chilling warning. Don't you dare hurt that girl. Sensing the dangerous shift in his companion, Turi urged him to calm down, worried that a reckless move would put Lip in greater danger. Alon simply told him not to worry, claiming with an unnerving stillness that he was always calm. In a shocking betrayal, Alon's sword flashed not towards the enemy, but at Turi himself. Turi barely managed to parry the unexpected strike, demanding to know what his supposed ally was doing. With a chilling smile, Alon merely complimented his quick reaction. He stared in disbelief at the man who had just attacked him. Alon's eyes, cold and unfeeling behind his glasses, met his gaze. Did you sense my bloodlust? Alon asked calmly. What gave me away? His mind raced, trying to make sense of the betrayal. Alon, Turi began, his voice tight. You were working with the snake nest? The question was met with a condescending smile. If I said no, Alon replied, would you believe me in this situation? The rhetorical question was an admission in itself. A chillingly pleasant smile spread across Alon's face as he expressed his hope that Turi had trusted him to the very end. Now, he said, removing his glasses, allow me to introduce myself for real. The casual cruelty of the act struck Turi deeply. I trusted you, he whispered, the realization sinking in. I really did. As Alon stepped back, another man came forward, his presence commanding. I'm the second in command of the snake nest, the man announced with a smirk, and a 4-star adventurer, Arrow, the silver snake. He looked directly at Turi. Pleased to meet you, though I suspect you won't have long left. The threat was clear. Faced with an opponent of such rank, Turi's expression hardened. He knew he might not escape this without revealing his true. A new adversary presents himself. Arrow, the silver snake, a 4-star adventurer and second in command of his guild. He greets Turi with a chilling politeness, though his words carry a clear threat of a short-lived future. Turi stands surrounded, his expression grim as he realizes the scale of the trap. He continues his taunts, gesturing to the numerous members of the snake nest lurking in the woods. This overwhelming force, he claims, is a testament to how highly they value Turi as a target. The man expresses genuine disbelief at Turi's gullibility, noting that despite being an outcast in the guild and knowing an ambush was imminent, the young mage still walked right into it. He finds such trust misplaced and foolish. When Turi questions why he was even given a chance, the silver snake admits he was initially suspicious. However, he chose to lean into that trust, mockingly asking if Turi is simply naive or truly idiotic. This revelation strikes a chord with Turi, who shouts back that he genuinely believed they could have been friends. His earnestness only draws more laughter from the antagonist, who dismisses the sentiment as pure stupidity and demands a fight worth watching. Suddenly, the forest erupts into violence as the thugs lunge forward. Turi is forced into a desperate defensive stance, parrying blades and dodging strikes as the snake nest members swarm him from all sides. He quickly realizes that standard swordsmanship is insufficient against such numbers. Every move he makes is countered by another attacker, and the weight of the ambush begins to take its toll on his stamina. Amidst the clashing steel, Arrow reveals the true depth of the conspiracy. They need a scapegoat for their upcoming crimes, and Turi's connection to Alon makes him the perfect candidate. He reveals that the flowers Turi sought were merely bait, and everything, including their supposed camaraderie, was a lie. The mention of his friend leaves Turi reeling with shock, a distraction the silver snake immediately exploits. He sneers, questioning if this Alon is merely a figment of Turi's imagination, as blood begins to spill onto the forest floor. Looking down at his battered opponent, the villain sighs with boredom, disappointed by the lack of resistance. Turi, though wounded and gasping for air, glares back with renewed intensity, reminding his captor that he isn't the only one with a stake in this fight. He stares in disbelief, his teeth gritted as the traitorous adventurer tries to justify the kidnapping. Arrow casually shifts the blame for the girl's injuries onto a subordinate, claiming he hadn't planned to harm her so soon, but the hollow excuse only fuels the young mage's mounting fury. He watches helplessly as the commotion causes the young girl to stir in the grasp of the hulking thug, her eyes widening in terror as she realizes her predicament. She screams for her Oni-san to save her, prompting a desperate roar from the mage, who demands her immediate release while the captors merely sneer at her cries. She struggles against her captor, but the brute delivers a heavy blow to the back of her head, silencing her pleas. The sight of such casual cruelty sends the mage into a spiral of agonizing despair, while Arrow merely watches with a cold, detached amusement. He trembles with rage as the silver-haired traitor leans in, his expression contorted with a sickening glee as he explains his true intent. He plans to deliver the girl to his master, savoring the way despair brings a certain delectable quality to his victims, and dismisses any further protests with a chilling lack of empathy. He suddenly utters a single word of power: teleportation. In a blur of displaced air, The mage vanishes and reappears instantly behind the massive thug, his fist already in motion as he bellows for the man to get off the child. Despite the blood trickling down his face, the young man offers a reassuring smile to the trembling children, apologizing for the ordeal they've endured. He gently instructs them to stay back, promising to handle the threat himself while they remain in safety. As he steps forward, a torrential aura of mana erupts around him, leaving his companions in awe of the sheer power he had been concealing. To them, he is no longer just a mentor, but the most formidable mage in existence, standing as a pillar of strength against the encroaching darkness. This sudden display of overwhelming energy sends a wave of shock through the ranks of the aggressors, who struggle to comprehend the nature of his magic. They mutter in disbelief, terrified by the realization that their target possesses mana far beyond anything they anticipated, questioning how a mere rookie could wield such force. Their leader grinds his teeth, realizing that holding back is no longer an option if they hope to survive the encounter. A cold sweat breaks on his brow as he prepares to unleash everything he has against this unexpected monster, his previous arrogance replaced by a desperate need to regain control. Ignoring the enemy's mounting desperation, the mage invokes a spell of isolation, weaving a barrier to shield the innocent from the impending violence. He reassures the children once more, telling them the conflict will be over in a heartbeat and that they shouldn't worry about the blood on his brow. He laments being forced to reveal his dimensional magic in such a public manner, already calculating the risks of his identity being exposed. If the secret of his power spreads, he is prepared to abandon everything and start anew in a distant land, coldly acknowledging that dead men tell no tales. A dark, intrusive thought flickers through his mind, suggesting that since these men are irredeemably evil, ending their lives would be the simplest solution. The cold logic of the idea startles him, forcing him to confront the growing ruthlessness within his own soul as he stares down his opponents. Taking a steadying breath, he pushes the murderous impulse aside and focuses on the task at hand. He commands himself to remain calm, his resolve hardening as he determines the most efficient way to neutralize the threat without losing his humanity in the process. Facing the silver-haired leader, he meets the man's arrogant threats with a gaze of icy determination. The bandit vows to beat him into submission to prevent any further interference, but the mage remains unmoved, his power continuing to thrum with silent, deadly intensity. The battlefield erupts into chaos as the confrontation reaches its boiling point, drawing the attention of hidden observers who find the spectacle morbidly entertaining. Amidst the clashing energies and desperate shouts, the true extent of the conflict begins to unfold under the watchful eyes of those lurking in the shadows. He initiates the isolation spell, a shimmering barrier that cuts off the battlefield from the outside world. The silver snake reels in confusion, unable to comprehend how his men were neutralized in a heartbeat. With a cold, detached gaze, the mage suggests his opponent keep his eyes open for the one-sided slaughter about to unfold. Because of this sudden shift in power, the bandit leader can only watch in horror as his entire squad is decimated in an instant. He stammers, questioning the source of such overwhelming strength, while the young man casually asks if he's familiar with the concept of a home run. The blow that follows is devastating, a physical manifestation of his mana that sends the bandit flying through the air like a discarded toy. He advises his foe to grit his teeth just before the impact, leaving the nearby children trembling in the wake of such raw, terrifying force. Standing over the broken remains of his enemy, he looms with a terrifying intensity, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. He demands the man soil himself in terror, a fitting punishment for the tears he forced from the young girl, while her brother watches on, unable to reconcile this ruthless warrior with the man he thought he knew. Amidst the adrenaline of the fight, a fleeting, ethereal image of a smiling woman flickers through his mind, causing him to pause. He wonders if his own psyche is fracturing or if some external force is tampering with his thoughts, as the coldness of his actions begins to feel alien even to himself. Shaking off the mental fog, he decides that his priority must be securing the safety of the children rather than indulging in further violence. He ignores the bandits' lingering presence, focused solely on leading the young ones away from the carnage. However, the defeated leader refuses to stay down, spitting out threats and warnings about his own resilience. The mage merely sighs, dismissing the man's bravado as a tedious distraction from the task at hand. The air suddenly fractures with a violent tremor, shattering the surrounding structures into a hail of debris. He barely has time to react, as the very ground beneath them seems to buckle under the weight of a new, far more sinister presence. Emerging from the dust is the true master of the snake den, a man whose very aura radiates a predatory malice. He looks down upon his failed subordinate with utter contempt, making it clear that the real game is only just beginning. Facing this new threat, the young mage realizes he is looking at the infamous Snake King himself. The antagonist doesn't waste words, his face twisting into a sadistic grin as he promises a swift and brutal end to the interloper's life. He had left a wake of tension behind him, but far from that confrontation, the sky over a different city remained indifferent and vast. Beneath that same sky, the young witch gazed longingly toward the east, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon as if searching for something lost. Her companion noticed the repetitive habit, questioning why she spent every day lost in thought while staring in that direction. She quickly denied any lingering concern when asked if her heart was still back in the town of Boris, but her friend saw through the thin veil of composure. The armored warrior urged her to relax, sensing the internal struggle the girl was trying so hard to hide. She found the truth undeniable as the warrior pointed out that it wasn't just the town she missed, but the man she had left behind there. The realization hit the young mage like a physical blow, her face flushing as her secret longing for Turi was laid bare. Despite the longing, she hesitated, feeling a deep sense of debt toward the woman who had taken her in when her memories were nothing but a void. To leave now felt like an act of supreme selfishness, a betrayal of the kindness she had been shown. Sensing this guilt, the leader of the Chalk Blade took a more pragmatic tone, reminding her that as an employer, a sudden departure would indeed be a logistical headache. It was a gentle way to frame the situation, acknowledging their professional bond before addressing the personal one. She let the stern facade melt away, reminding the girl that they were more than just employer and employee. They were friends, even family. Encouraged by this warmth, the witch finally confessed her true feelings, admitting her deep worry for Turi and her desperate wish to return to his side. She granted her blessing with a radiant smile, officially giving her permission to depart. The weight that had been pressing down on the young girl's shoulders seemed to vanish in an instant, replaced by a surge of relief and joy. She didn't stop there with the surprises, revealing that a carriage bound for Boris had already been arranged in anticipation of this very moment. It was a final, thoughtful gesture, ensuring that the journey back to her master would be as swift as possible. As the conversation concluded, the rest of the group stepped forward to offer their support, though the fire fairy wailed in protest, clinging to the idea of staying with her master as well. Despite the small outburst, the decision was unanimous. They all agreed it was time for the young witch to follow her heart back to the man who needed her. She looked down, her voice soft as she expressed her gratitude to the woman who had helped her so much. Aisha simply smiled back, dismissing the thanks and asking for a single promise in return. She spoke with a serious expression, warning her friend not to take any unnecessary risks or put herself in danger. Meeting her gaze with newfound resolve, the young witch gave her word that she would be careful. Moments later, she prepared to depart as the carriage stood ready for the long journey ahead. Her mind was already miles away, focused on the man she was desperate to reach, silently urging him to wait for her as she set out to join his solitary struggle.